across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
A very good afternoon to you. Thank you very much to Ian Collins. Back tomorrow afternoon between 1 and 4. And apologies again for yesterday. I was all geared up, ready to go, but the trains were crap and I didn't make it. So well done to Cardi P, who apparently had a right old laugh. What is it? Just gone 4 o'clock. Right, here's the deal today. After 5 days of being away, there's so much to talk about. I'm going to be in full rant mode. I want your involvement. Jodie, the A-team, Ryan, they're back. Smiler's here. Janet, anyway, she's here as well. So if you want to be on, telephone number as usual on the screens right now if you're watching on YouTube. 0344 499 1000. 0344 499 1000. Whatever you want to talk about. Ryan will take voice note messages. Start with, what should we start with? What's that stuff on your trousers, Ryan? We've discovered something's on the front of his. Doesn't look great. Start your voice note with what's on your trousers, Ryan. 0344 499 1000. You can send your text 87222. Start your message with the word talk. I'm on a bit of a mission today. Tell your friends we need to listen. We've got loads to talk about. Where do we start with? The furore that has started about universal benefits. More than 1 million migrants are claiming benefits in the United Kingdom, with the majority unemployed. We have to say that illegal migrants cannot claim universal credit, but foreign nationals can access that credit and benefits once they have indefinite reasons to stay or they get refugee status. And when you realise how long it takes us to process a bleeding illegal migrant, that's why 1 million of them are getting money. 1 million. How much is that costing the country? How much is that screwing us even further? If that wasn't enough, what about another great example of the United Kingdom? A huge data blunder, I don't know if you've heard this story this afternoon, has basically led to nearly potentially 20,000 Afghans coming to this country secretly. It was only made knowledgeable today after a super injunction in the courts was taken down. This isn't the Labour Party. This happened during the Tory government. It wasn't even their fault. It was a major mistake by a member of the British Armed Forces, is all I can say. But basically, a total of 18,714 Afghans were included on the secret list, many of whom arrived on unmarked planes because they're in a dangerous position. 20,000 more! This country's on its backside. While I've been away, the BBC's covered itself in yet more glory, hasn't it? Still nothing about Bob Villan. I mean, that's a complete and utter disgrace. I mean, Greg Wallace, we've had that. How much longer does it take for the BBC to actually be held responsible? Yesterday, they were chastised over that appalling documentary about Gaza, which, oh, surprise, surprise, was voiced by the 13-year-old son of a Hamas official. Even Tim Davie is now beginning to get the message that actually all is not right with the BBC. Myself, defund it. Time to go. They tried to get John Redwood. Have you seen this story from MasterChef? After all the stuff with Greg Wallace, they tried to get him to resign, apparently by saying to him, you've been found guilty of racism in this investigation. You need to resign and say it's mental illness. Unbelievable. Been through a bit of that myself. Let me tell you, John Redwood's, I don't know, is he going to last? Probably not. And on top of all of that, Mad Ed Miliband wants to make it illegal. This is ridiculous. Illegal to be anti-net stupid zero. That's me in the clink. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. What better way to start a Tuesday that's really like my Monday by saying a very good afternoon to the lovely Poppy Coburn, assistant comment editor of the Daily Telegraph. How are you?
Very, very good. It's good to be back.
This is you're in a different place. Where are you? You sat, where are you? What are you doing?
There's loads of foliage behind me. It looks a little bit like I'm in the rainforest, but I promise I'm in Victoria.
Well done. And also, we don't go into details, but you're better, which is great. We've missed you. We're glad everything is fine and dandy with you. Where do you want to start with? More than 1 million migrants are claiming universal credit in Britain, with the majority... I know, look at her face. With the majority unemployed. It's not me, is it? It's madness.
You know, do you ever get bored of being right? Because I really do get bored of being right. After years of having said there were not the economic benefits to mass migration that we were constantly told there were by all the very sensible people who apparently know more than the rest of the British public do, it turns out actually this is a massive strain on the public finances. And it's not like we've got loads of money going around. The government was nearly brought to its knees last week over trying to cut £5 billion from the budget. So how many billions are we wasting on this?
They said a figure of, which is extraordinary, I mean, 800 university credit, nearly 1.26 million. I don't know actually, Ryan. Let's get a figure. How much is that cost? Do we know how much it's costing the United Kingdom? Millions, billions, maybe. I've no idea. But I mean, I've got a really strange view of this, which if I've shared with you before, then forgive me. But I've always heard the argument over the last few years that we need migration, not because of multiculturalism, but because these people will come and provide the work that we can't do. But the truth is, I'm not talking about doctors. So many of them come to this country and work as care workers, they work as hospital porters, but then you might think I'm terrible, Poppy. There's also millions of people in the United Kingdom who are not mentally ill and are not disabled and are long-term unemployed, which has become, I'm afraid, for many, a choice rather than, you know, us helping people who can't help themselves. I would make them get off their asses and go out and give something back to the community that is paying them. And I've always said that, almost like community service, gets them out of bed, puts something on the CV, gives us something back, and then you don't need to flood the country with people who are still further stretching our public services. And when people say to me, oh, you're being really unfair. No, I'm not. I go back to Beryl in Bury. She's 76. She can't see a doctor or a dentist, but you can come in on a boat and you can have everything. It doesn't make sense. It really doesn't.
I mean, there's a reason why we say we're British, OK? It's not just a terminology. It's because we pay taxes. You know, we were born in this country and we pay taxes. You pay taxes and the state has a responsibility to do a certain few things. So one thing they're supposed to do is to protect you. They're supposed to look after your well-being. They're supposed to educate you. They're supposed to care for you in old age. This is the contract that we all seem to have with the government. Now, how many people actually feel that that contract is being properly carried out? Because I don't think many people do. It is not right that people can come to Britain who will not work. That's not fair.
You see, the argument from the left, and you know this, the woke argument is, but where you're wrong there, Poppy and Jez, is that these people, because the processing system takes too long and it's terrible, these people are left in limbo, and actually they would love to go out to work and give something back. Now, I'm sure there are many who are like that, but we also have to absolutely acknowledge there are millions of people who look at this country as a soft touch and go, do you know, if I get there, without my wife and kids, by the way, I'm leaving them with the bombs, right? I'm coming here because it's easy. And I don't care if... I mean, people will throw everything at you. They'll say you're far right, you're racist. I'm not. I've always believed that this country has always taken the lead morally. But we are skint. We can't afford the interest on our own debts. And more than that, as you say, people who have paid their stamp for years are missing out. And I mean, it's really interesting. Have you heard this story about the Afghans today? This is not at Labour's door. I mean, this is not at the Tories' door. This is a mistake that was made. A Royal Marine sent a secret email containing the details of Afghan refugees fleeing the Taliban to the wrong people. The list also included names of their individual UK sponsors, including SAS and MI6 spies, and at least one Royal Navy Marine. I mean, a total of 18,700 were included on the list, and rightfully had to come here and be protected. This could cost over £1 billion, for Christ's sake. What is wrong with this country? What is wrong with this country?
I actually think this story is probably by far the biggest scandal I've heard of in months. And there are so many different angles to this. I mean, the first one, the government actually hid how many people were entering Britain. As part of this super injunction, 20,000 Afghans entered the country without anyone knowing about it. It was literally hidden from official figures. It was literally hidden from official accounting. The government put journalists through the courts for trying to report on a story that's quite clearly in the public interest. That is utterly disgraceful. And as you say, this is the fault of the Conservative Party. You know, the Conservative Party, for all they're going to want to blame this on Labour, it's completely on them.
They took the super injunction out. What was their reason for taking the super injunction out?
I mean, so the data breach is deeply unprofessional, OK? It is, of course, ridiculous that there was a breach of data of people who were allegedly working as translators. By the way, these were not people who were fully vetted, and many of them were actually considered not to have been eligible for asylum, who then were allowed asylum when this report was actually released. So we don't actually know who those people are. They could actually be a threat to British national security, and they're now in the country, which is deeply concerning. The reason why they took out this super injunction was because they claimed the Taliban would try and hunt down and kill all of these people, up to 100,000 people. Now, the Taliban, it goes without saying the Taliban are an evil organisation. But they are also not going to hunt down and kill 100,000 people unless Britain takes them right now. That is hysterical. It is not our responsibility to take this many people when we do not know who they all are. by all means, if you want to take a very small number of people who worked as translators, because it wasn't that large, and that's more people than actually went to go fight in Afghanistan. So if we're supposed to believe there were somehow tens of thousands more people who were doing translating work, that is absurd. Yeah, the whole story from top to bottom tells you everything you need to know about the government.
It's a really interesting one, but interesting in a frightening way for people just tuning in. So a huge data blunder leads to 20,000 Afghans have been allowed into this country secretly. The government took out that super injunction in court to deny journalists the chance to tell the story, which is, of course, in the public interest. But what's really interesting, Pops, is that they say ministers have warned there could be riots after the lifting of that super injunction, which kept quiet that mass immigration scheme. The Ministry of Defence has alerted all government departments of possible public disorder following the revelations that thousands have slipped quietly into Britain whilst our public services are on their backsides and British people are struggling. And every day when I sit on this show and I say to people all the time, I always say the same thing, right? I am not... I want the world to get on, right? I want everybody to be... But the truth of the matter is, within this country, outside the M25 circle or outside Islington, Starmer, you idiot, there are many millions of hard-working, not far-right, hard-working, tax-paying, non-asking for people who are just trying to pay their bills and bring their kids up, and they are looking at this and they're going, it's another day and it's another example why I think I'm at the back of the bleeding queue and enough is enough. And that is not. I hear this from all sorts of people, Poppy, from 16-year-olds to 80-year-olds. People are hacked off. They are totally hacked off with this.
It's disgusting. The first responsibility of government is to look after its own people. Okay, that doesn't make you a bigot for saying that. That's literally the social contract. Okay,
well socially look after us and security-wise. Your borders are wide open, your army's absolutely shot to pieces, and your public services don't work.
And I'm really not being hysterical here. This is a serious national security risk. Yeah, okay. You know, just as much as the people coming over in small boats is a security risk. We do not know who these people are. This country was a war zone. We were in this country for about 20 years. Okay, it's not safe to have people rushed over without proper vetting. It's just unbelievable.
Love to know what you think, peeps, on that. 10344 499 1000. 1 million migrants are claiming benefits in Britain, and that huge data blunder by the Ministry of Defence means that 20,000 Afghans have been slipped into this country without anybody knowing because the government took out a super injunction. Poppy, the other area that we have to talk about, obviously the organisation that I'd never worked for, the BBC. We've had the Greg Wallace debacle over MasterChef, half of what was said about him upheld. He kicks back by saying, television is a dangerous place for working class men. I've got my own opinions on that. John Redwood, his co-star, has been asked to resign allegedly over a racist remark. And then he said, then they said, blame the mental health things. Bob Villan was allowed to shout, kill the IDF. Death to the IDF. Nothing happened to him. Poor old Lucy Connell is in jail. Powerful people at the BBC make life unbearable, Chairman admits. Tim Davie, the BBC is beyond contempt, isn't it? Where do we start? Savile, where do we end? I mean, it's just ridiculous.
You just cannot trust this body to regulate itself. No. That's the thing. What is the point of having these annual reports that come out of people who are actually within the organisation going, oh, it's been another tough year? Of course it's been a tough year. It's because you're the people running it. You're the people who keep making the same mistakes. You know, and then we're supposed to read about it from the BBC's own website. I mean, the Bob Villan case in particular is really above and beyond shocking. It is utterly shocking. You know, and you can blame partly the piece, but we now know, because this came out yesterday, there were people at the BBC who could have cut the feed from Glastonbury at any moment, and they chose not to.
He was there. Tim Davie was in the audience, and he was asked, and he said, well, maybe don't stream it, but keep it on demand. I only put this to you. And every time I say this, the phone lines go mad, and some people have a go at me, but most don't. After the Southport riots, I have no time for the far right. But I suspect that many people took to the streets because they were very, very unhappy with what they saw as two-tier justice. Keir Starmer jumps up. And at that moment, right, we had no space in prisons, a 3-year backlog in courts, and within 24 hours, everybody was labelled far right. People were rounded up, arrested on camera, tried on camera, and thrown into prison on camera, because at the end of the following week, all these idiots were let out with their Gucci trainers and quickly reoffended and were put back inside. My problem with the Bob Villan thing is he's an idiot anyway. Why wasn't he dragged off stage? Why on earth was he allowed to say that? And that was 3 weeks ago, and nothing has happened at all. That's because Starmer and his left-wing human rights mates, they don't see it the way the rest of us see it. And I think when I say the day of reckoning, I just think people have had enough, Poppy. I really do. I really do.
I think you've hit the nail on the head, absolutely there. What it comes down to is it's the public broadcaster. That means it should be held to a higher standard. And yet it's proven itself to have the lowest standards of all when it comes to broadcasting.
I couldn't agree more. While we're at it, so we've had to go at the BBC, we've had to go at the Ministry of Defence. It's too big. I love this. This said, I like this very much indeed. Somebody said, if the Ministry of Defence spent less time on DEI and wokery, the data blunder that cost us millions and put people in danger may not have happened. Anybody sacked? I doubt it. It'll be another bloody cover-up, says Mick in Wallington. BBC, Ministry of Defence, universal credit. And just to finish this little segment off, the world's biggest pillock. Net Zero Minister Ed Miliband is accused of a shrill scare campaign today to smear sceptics. He blasted critics of his green policies as anti-science, I don't know why I'm doing that, Joe, anti-jobs, anti-energy security and anti-future generations. In a fiery common statement, Miliband unveiled plans to make an annual State of the Climate address, and it's also that energy tycoon that some people have on this station, Dale Vince, yeah, he says that it would be a really good idea if people who are against it get jailed. I'm really sorry, I've got a really simple problem, right? It's really, really interesting to me, right? This country is that bleeding skint it can't afford the interest on its debts. And that pillock thinks it would be a good idea to spend billions to get to net zero. And as Mike Graham once famously said, what happens when we get to zero if we do? What happens next? And that's true, isn't it? What does it mean?
I just find it so funny that Ed Miliband, seemingly like detached from the rest of the government, because even the Labour Party doesn't actually seem to like him, and the Prime Minister's briefing against him every other week. It's just allowed to get up there and do like Greta Thunberg style mad speeches, and everyone just does politely claps and goes, thanks for that, Ed, that was brilliant, you know, and you would laugh, but the man's actually in charge of our energy. And I'm not laughing when I look at my electricity bills. I mean, he's completely bonkers.
I don't understand as well. I mean, I have this conversation with people all the time, right? So they all say to me, aren't you worried? No, this next generation, sorry. I don't understand. If you're skint, which we are, love your take on this, and we've got all this gas and oil, will make us super rich. You could perhaps, to the people in the area that don't like the idea of fracking or stuff like that, you could supplement their bills or whatever. Why are we spending billions on something that doesn't work? Because you then have to import it from another country at more cost, simply to follow this ideology that makes our bills more expensive, doesn't work, and isn't going to improve the world. And that's him. He's an idiot, a dangerous idiot.
Well, that's why I said Greta Thunberg. He's like a teenage activist who has somehow been given a Ministry of State. You know, you're completely right. Even if the economy wasn't that tight, the most fundamental thing the government has to do is provide energy to its people. We need it for our economy. We need it for our homes. You know, and Ed Miliband, he just keeps I mean, the fact that they want to send people to jail now for disputing net zero tells you everything you need to know. They know it's bonkers.
We're going to jail, then. You and I are going to jail. Where are we going?
Well,
we're
exactly.
going to jail.
Well, we're going to be political prisoners because we say we don't want our energy bills to cost £400 a month. I mean, what a ridiculous thing to say.
It is ludicrous. Breaking news from the Information Commissioner's Office, by the way. The data breach, which exposed details of Afghans, was a deeply regrettable incident that placed thousands of vulnerable people at risk and should never happen again. But no further regulatory action is required at this time, says the Information Commissioner's Office. Poppy Coburn from The Telegraph. Respond to that, please.
Well, no, there's no apology to the British people for the several £billion bill that we're now going to have to foot for that little mistake of theirs. But I'm glad they've done an investigation and found out that they weren't at fault. Funny that.
It's just, you hear these stories, don't you, the whole time, and nobody seems to take responsibility. Look, I can have sympathy for anybody making a mistake, but you send 20,000, an email with 20,000 names, and somebody in government says, these people are in danger, we need to bring them to the United Kingdom, they could all be murdered. We're going to keep that from the press, we're going to keep it from the British people, despite the fact we know nothing about these people, and I will be accused of all sorts of things for what I'm about to say. We let 20,000 strangers into our country without any vetting. What the hell could happen? And then several years later, the courts go, no, you need to tell the British people. And the ministry says, you better watch out, there could be riots. People could be very angry. And people like that, the Information Commissioner, it's not our problem. It shouldn't happen again. It's regrettable. Of course, it shouldn't bloody well happen. What I thought this with... final thing. I thought this with Southport. I mean, that heinous man should never see the light of day, in my humble opinion. But I think that the reason that it escalated as it did is I think the government knew instantly who he was. I think they also knew that going the rounds on social media was the inaccurate belief that it was an illegal migrant, which fueled real resentment and anger. Why were they not open and honest with the British people? And that would have absolutely extinguished that. And possibly, I would have thought, unless I'm missing the point, what happened on the streets wouldn't have happened. But they didn't. Did they let it happen, Poppy Coburn, because it suited their political ideology, which is everybody that takes to the streets is far right. They've done that. We can arrest them. That's what I think.
Well, the problem, I mean, look, the problem for them is that everyone I know, regardless of political ideology, is furious. They're angry. They're angry at the people in charge. They're angry at not being listened to. They're angry everything's getting worse every day. And if they're going to call all those people far right, then good luck to them. I mean, it's preposterous. You know, get out of power if you're not willing to deal with the consequences of it.
Completely agree. And can I just say, already loads of takes. It's great to have you back. We're so glad you're better, and thank you, sir. And I like the area. It looks a bit more flowery than the usual office.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Speak to you next week. Poppy Coburn, assistant editor, of course, of the Daily Telegraph. Great to have her on. 4:23. We're live across the United Kingdom. JK on Drive. I made it. Up your southwest trains, 0344 499 1000. Jodie is here. You can send a WhatsApp to Ryan, but you have to start your WhatsApp with "What's on your trousers, Ryan?" Not good news. Drive time.
Breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
Something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
This is a Talk exclusive.
Breaking
across the UK on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 4:26, we're live across the UK. JK on tour, Drive, the home of free speech and common sense. Jack Elsom, political editor of The Sun, on the way. Your calls have upset Jodie. I've only been back half an hour. I finished watching Mobland last night. Honestly, with the wife, if you can get past Piers Brosnan's Irish accent, which is ironically bad, but he is Irish, Tom Hardy is amazing. But the ending... Well, obviously it's the second series, but I'm slightly wound up. And Helen Mirren is utterly barking mad. Fantastic show. And now I'm depressed because I've nothing to go home and watch. But I'm sitting here looking at Ryan's trousers, and that in itself is quite funny. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. Quick call. Let's go to Hampshire. Carl, you're on Talk Drive. Couple of minutes. What you got, my friend?
I mean, I just want to say I 100% agree with everything you say, and mostly everything. And I feel your pain train on working hours in Boston on Sunday.
Right, we're going to have to do something else there, because that line's absolutely awful. Can you try him on a different line, Joe? I'm going to go to Jack, if that's all right. We've got Jack lined up, and then I'll come back. Not our fault, that happens. That's live, ladies and gentlemen. We say a very good afternoon to the man. Can you get me that front page of The Sun, please, up on the screen? The man who wrote the most extraordinary article this morning, the political editor of The Sun, and the man who still takes my calls. Jack Elsom, how are you, son?
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Yeah, not bad, thanks. It's good to see you, by the way, and happy birthday for the other week. The big 7-0. You know,
you cheeky git. Listen, I knew you when you were single and you were struggling. Don't start on me now. You're in your position of power, Elsom, you old bugger. How are you? You all right?
Well, I'm not feeling in a position of power today because I've been kicked out by my colleagues into the hallway again. So I'm sitting on the stairwell because they're doing an important meeting back in the office. So I'm back by the fire escape outside.
Let's talk about. Have you got the front page of The Sun up for me, please? In between me and Jack, be great. Let's talk about this amazing story, Jack. There's so much that I want to talk to you about. Let's start with this story of 1 million migrants, right, claiming universal credit in Britain. We have to point out that illegal migrants cannot claim universal credit, but foreign nationals can get it, and also you can get it if you are waiting to find out if you can get refugee status or you're held. So because our processing systems are utterly rubbish in this country, 1 million people are getting money from a government that can't afford the interest on its debts, whilst Brits are struggling to get what they need and deserve, pal.
Yeah, I mean, there's not many early morning government stats releases that makes you spit out your cornflakes, but I think this is probably one of them, because the fact that 1.3 million migrants are on universal credit is just a massive slap in the chops to many hard-working Brits, especially when you consider that the majority of them are not in work. And I think most right-minded Brits will think, why on earth are you allowed to come to this country if you cannot support yourself? Because at the moment it shouldn't be British taxpayers who are bailing you out. And, you know, it's an imperfect science in terms of trying to calculate how much this costs, but analysis shows that it's probably in the region of about £6 billion a year. Now, for context, that is the size of the black hole caused by Keir Starmer's retreats on welfare and winter fuel, and which are probably going to be the cause of putting up tax rises in the autumn. And so the fact that these stats have come today, I think, will upset many people. Nigel Farage has been out today saying that it blows out of the water the claim that immigration is an unalloyed good because people are coming here to contribute. That is true in many cases, and I don't think many people shy away from that. But the fact that these stats show that more than half of the people who are claiming universal credit are unemployed, I think beggars belief. And, you know, it sparked calls for universal credit to only be restricted to British citizens. But it's one of these things, I think, again, and we talked about it on this show a lot, where British people just feel that they're being taken for an absolute ride, and the workforce is being squeezed within an inch of their life in terms of taxes. And then you get stories like this, and it's just another sort of sign that Britain is on the down and out. And it's not just Labour, even though I think 100,000 new claims have come since Keir Starmer got into power. It started under the Tories as well. And there seems to be a bit of a blame game today, actually, between the Tories and Nigel Farage. The Tories trying to jump on this, bashing Labour. Nigel Farage is saying that they shouldn't be saying anything. They should be in hiding because they are the ones that started the problem. So, yeah, it's a bit of a mess. It's
really interesting to get your take as the political editor of The Sun, because, I mean, I sit here every day. We're mates, but I get the feeling that away from London and the political circles that we all sort of inhabit and media and stuff, just honest to God, hard-working, normal Brits are at the end of their tether. They're not far-right thugs. They're not going to take to the streets. They shouldn't be locked up. They shouldn't be Lucy Conleyed or whatever. But these people are literally looking in the mirror, Jack, aren't they, and going, Why do I do everything correctly? I mean, I find myself saying it every day. I make no apology. Why do I pay my taxes? Why do I not break the law? Why do I not ask for a handout? Why do I do everything I can to pay my bills and teach my kids the difference between right and wrong? Because this country is sending a very strong message to the rest of the world, which is we're as soft as whatever, and you can come here and you can get universal credit. I mean, the other big story is this huge data blunder. I mean, this is an extraordinary story, which I know you guys have covered. I mean, up to 20,000 Afghans were put in a vulnerable position because of an email sent with all their details. The government, the Tories again, went into meltdown and went, oh my God, these people could all be murdered by the Taliban because they were all translators, apparently. Right, so we're going to have to bring them. We're going to take a super injunction out so the media can't say jack to the British people. And we're going to bring them into Britain secretly. And then today, or yesterday, the judge went, no, we need to tell the British people. So lots comes from that, which is, and I thought this was really interesting, you know. Somebody said, nothing against the Afghans, but does that mean the expats weren't as important? What about letting 20,000 people who haven't been vetted into your country when we all know what's happening on the streets because of the numbers of people who are coming here and getting into our country without any checking? And then the cost of that could be £1 billion. What is wrong with these politicians, mate? And I mean all of them, not just Starmer. They just don't seem to... There's no common sense with this. This is another appalling story.
Yeah, I mean, like, I know this is sort of down to human error, but it is also a massive failing of state and also a secrecy operation by the state as well. And kudos to those journalists that have fought for the best part of 2 years to get this into the open. And even the judge today said that this was a serious restriction of freedom of speech. The fact that £7 billion would be the price tag for this cock-up and no head seems to have rolled whatsoever. And we're only just finding out about it now. It's absolutely extraordinary, and it's almost too complex to sort of get into on here. And I'd encourage everyone to go away and just like read the entire reports about this because it is absolutely extraordinary. And yes, we have now thousands of Afghans who are here because their lives are put at risk. Or said to be put at risk by this massive data breach. It absolutely beggars belief. But
have you heard what the ministers have said? Ministers have warned there could be riots after the lifting of that super injunction, which kept quiet a mass immigration scheme. Let me put to you, Jack, you work at The Sun, you write politics every day. I have a theory about the Southport thing, which you might disagree or not with, because that opening up to the British people... I bet the British government after Southport knew absolutely everything they needed to know about Rudy Buchanan. It also was going on the rounds on social media. This is an illegal migrant. And that fueled such anger and such resentment. And that built, and I don't condone it, that resulted in those riots, and those people were all dealt with by the Starmer militia within 24 hours. Do you agree with me that if the government had been transparent about the fact that he was a choir boy from Wales who had gone wrong, that would have diffused it? But maybe it suited their ideology, did it not, for there to be riots so they could call everybody far right and jump on it? Because I don't see that piece of from Glastonbury being arrested on stage and he was shouting for Jews to be killed. There's no balance to anything, mate. There isn't.
Yeah, there's two different points here. You know, there is definitely an argument that our contempt of court laws are vastly out of date and that anyone now has a platform on social media and therefore there's an onus on politicians, the authorities, the police to put out more information in the public domain to combat disinformation which is circulating online. I think that's something which the government is looking at. But in terms of the wider point about this whole question about two-tier policing, two-tier justice, there certainly does seem to be huge anger in the country now. What they see is, one rule for one group of people, mainly on the right, and one for another group of people. Someone like Bob Villan, for example, who whipped up useful idiot to Glastonbury with anti-Semitic death chants. And then you have someone like Lucy Connolly. Most people don't agree with what she tweeted at all and said that it's pretty repugnant. But she apologised and she's been banged up for 2 years. There doesn't seem to be anything equal about sort of the justice which has been meted out by the courts. And so, it clearly is a big feeling at the moment, and it seems to be something which is taken off, across all kinds of areas. We even heard yesterday Northern Ireland veterans marching in Westminster saying that they're now the victims of two-tier justice, people that work for the IRA are essentially getting off scot-free, whereas people who lay down their lives, put their lives on the line in Northern Ireland from the British Army are being hounded through the courts.
Well, I can absolutely add my weight
to everything.
I know the Sun will, and I will add my weight to that, and I talk will as well. I think that's utterly disgusting to every veteran who fought for this country for what was right. Now faces prosecution, yet we make excuse after excuse, as usual, for the perpetrators of crimes nowadays. It seems the IRA in this instance. We'll finish because you're a busy man. I mean, the BBC. I mean, where do you want me to start? MasterChef, that, of course, is on the front page. Greg Wallace, half of the complaints upheld against Greg Wallace. He'll never work for the BBC again. He says, today, it's quite interesting, he says that the BBC has become a dangerous place for working class men. John Redwood, his co-star, he came out and said, I made a racist remark, that was upheld, and I've been told I should resign and blame my mental health. We've got the Bob Villain thing, we've got that Hamas documentary that was voiced by a 13-year-old. Another thing, a bit like politicians, I would very much respectfully suggest that thousands and millions of people are going to turn against the BBC because they could not organise something in a brewery right now, could they? It gets worse and worse.
I just can't believe how it's one thing after another. If this was any sort of private company, heads would have rolled, it would have been put into special measures, the auditors would have been brought in. But because it's a publicly funded broadcaster, it seems to be getting away with everything. Look at the rap sheet for the past few years alone. You have Hugh Edwards, you have their coverage over Israel Gaza, you have Bob Villain, you have the sort of row with MasterChef now, and it does seem to be one thing after another. There is a crisis.
They should have got the message with Savile. They should have got the message with Savile all those years ago. Rolf Harris, Stuart Hall, all of it. There seems to be with the BBC this. With a state broadcaster, we're better than you. We demand this. We demand that. Who are they accountable for? Or rather to, Jack? That's what I want to know, the British people, right? Oh, is somebody walked past? What's going on now?
Yeah, it's totally. Someone's trying to get up the stairwell, I'm afraid. But no, you're totally right. There is definitely a crisis of confidence at the BBC at the moment, and they do have a duty to be squeaky clean because we are giving them millions of pounds of our money every single year, and so there is a duty on them to be totally impartial and to make sure that their house is in order. And at the moment, it seems that it is everything but, and the public are losing faith in them. Tim Davies seems to be the man with 9 lives at the moment, and he keeps on saying after every single crisis that he's going to change. But there's no evidence at the moment of there being serious change here because we keep seeing scandal after scandal. And yes, in an organisation as big as that, there's going to be some stuff, but it does seem that they have more than their fair share of crises and drama. And I think the public are just absolutely losing faith at the moment. And the BBC's model itself, a publicly funded licence fee, is very, it's on thin ice as it is really as people turn to other channels, like talkTV.
It's very tenuous, mate. You can't purport to be the state broadcaster and take that money and be imbalanced. And I would say this, and this is not because of what happened to me, but I think there comes a point, and I'm not in any way condoning any behaviour about anybody who's been suspended or cancelled, but there comes a point, surely, where the British people will go to television networks, in this instance the BBC. They keep making scapegoats of people, as you quite rightly say. Why aren't the people at the top of these organisations who allowed this, who were happy with this, whatever, they all say we didn't know anything about it. These people should take the rap. That's what I think. I'll tell you one thing I do think. The Sun talk, so important in these stories, taking the BBC on, taking the government on over stuff like that. I think it's so important. I'm sorry you've had to sit at the bottom of the stairwell. Do you think when they offered you the job, this is how you imagined a Tuesday afternoon would be, dear boy?
Sitting in a stinky stairwell talking to you, I didn't think it would be anything but it is an absolute privilege to do it every single day.
You're a legend, Elsom. Good man. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely to have you on. 20 to 5, Jack Elsom, political editor of The Sun, talking all things there. Universal credit benefits to 1 million migrants, OK? A huge data blunder means that we secretly brought 20,000 up to 20,000 Afghans into this country without telling the British public. What the hell does that mean? The BBC, they're under fire, but it doesn't matter if it's Savile or MasterChef or Bob Villain or whatever. They seem to get away with it. And on top of all of that, on Tuesday, mad Ed Miliband, right, that idiot that's going to spend billions of pounds trying to achieve something that frankly is irrelevant, wants to be... He's supported by that Dale Vince bloke. He said, oh, I think it would be a very good idea if people who disagreed with net zero were arrested. We're all off to the clink. We'll see you in 3. We're off for a wee.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Way to wake up, the legend that is MG. Back tomorrow morning, Morning Glory, courtesy of Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. 17 minutes to 5. You're on Drive with me, JK. Jez, your train is now British Rail, says Jim in Exeter. Don't tell me about it. Stuart in Perthshire. What happened to your chauffeur and your Rolls-Royce? Day off. Alison in Billericay. How the hell did 30,000 Afghan soldiers help our troops? It was 20,000. Are they taking the mick? Were they all translators? Didn't some of our soldiers get murdered by them? This is making my blood boil. I've really missed you, Jez. Happy 60th, says Lynn. Great. Dave Smart, are you? Jez, I'm looking forward to a great show today. Of course, both presenters from MasterChef had to go. I mean, 2 white men presenting a show. We can't be having that. Let's see who the replacements are. I bet it's not two straight white males. Dave from Ireland, scratching my head, wondering what is going on with this bleeding world. Hello to Betty. Oh, Betty. How are you? How many of those Afghans would have been abandoned if not for accidental release of list? Also, in contradiction to the BBC story that the SAS was trying to block Afghan soldiers from being rescued. Couldn't agree more. Hello to Steve in Cambridge. Brilliant start to your show with a beautiful and common sense Poppy. Looking forward to the rest of it. Oh, probably disappointed now. How do we exactly know who all these Afghans are? Some of them could be Taliban insurgents coming here to commit acts of terrorism under the guise of being helpers to the UK. Now, some people will listen to that and they'll say to me, well, that's outrageous. But if you don't know who you're letting into your country, how can you protect your people? Good afternoon to Margaret in Birmingham. All right, mate. Since Starmer and Macron holding hands and hugging last week, more than 1,400 have rocked up in boats. When is he bloody well going to get a grip? We're a laughing stock, we are. Michelle, was it an accidental breach or is there someone thinking that the public need to know this information? Very interesting. Now you're getting into it. Gaz, about the Afghan thing. It ain't like they'll be looking for Dave, who lives at 16 Desert Close. How will they find them? Gaz in Kidderminster. I've no idea. Was that Desert Close or Desert Close? Simon Dinage. Were the Afghans more priority than the expats? Lovely. Helen's in London. What's on your trousers, Ryan? I'm just going to put this out there. Ryan said to Jodie and I, it's toothpaste. Just hanging it out there. I'm not hanging it out there. That didn't sound right. I'm just throwing that out there. 0344 499 1000. Jeremy, can you stop calling that idiot Bob Villain and call him his given name Percy, please? Stop making him as something that he isn't. Nice to have you back. We can get a Chris in a minute. Dave Clifford. JK, I've also watched Mobland and would recommend Kin, which is very... Are you telling me to stop reading out messages? Honest to God, you might be able to bully Peter Carville, but not me, trouser boy. Russell's in. What do you call a man buried under the earth? under the leaves. What do you call a man? Russell. Brilliant. Russell's in Shrewsbury. Crap. Last one. Jez, when was this data breach? At least a year ago, but could it date back to withdrawal from Afghanistan when the Taliban took over again? If so, then these people have been in danger for longer than our government would like to admit. Interesting. Thank you very much indeed. I've been told our next guest is ready and I have to go to him. He has described the arrival of nearly upwards of 20,000 Afghans because of the data breach is the most damaging and disgraceful political decision I've seen in all my career. And God, he's old. He's older than me. Rear Admiral Chris Parry, a very good afternoon, sir. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. You?
Well, I'm a pensioner since we last spoke.
OK. Oh, congratulations.
Do you have a senior rail card, Chris?
No, I've got a veterans card.
What does that mean? How much do you get off the trade if it bloody well arrives? How much do you get?
Not enough.
Oh, all right then. On a serious note, you need to help us all out because you're my military go-to. Thousands of Afghans are secretly being relocated to the UK after a huge 7 billion email blunder. A Royal Marine had sent a secret email containing the details of Afghan refugees fleeing the Taliban to the wrong people. The list also included names of their individual UK sponsors, including SAS and MI6 spies and at least one Royal Marine Major General. The clumsy error has potential to be the most expensive data breach in British history. A total of 18,714 Afghans were included on the secret list, many of whom arrived via unmarked planes which landed at Stansted Airport. Ministers have warned they fear for riots after the lifting of a super injunction taken out by the Tory government so the British people weren't aware because of tension in the air. Take us through this, Chris Parry. This is outrageous, man.
Yeah, I think during the Cold War, if you've been the person that actually breached that sort of data level, you'd have gone to prison for that. And, I think it's at that scale. I've got no doubt the perpetrator should be prosecuted for this. It's outrageous, but by any standards. It's careless. You don't know the circumstances, but frankly, if you'd lost secret documents about our ballistic missile submarines, you'd be prosecuted. You go to prison, and that's the sort of league we're in here. But I think you were talking about it just before the break here, Jeremy. This is just typical of the casual incompetence that bedevils most of our public services. It's becoming systemic now. There doesn't seem to be any penalty for failing to actually serve the public properly. Indeed, I think, we've got several departments where people are doing what they like. And I think the whole immigration sector is one where this is probably not the only thing that the government are keeping from us. And that's the real worry. This situation whereby people are, you mentioned the business with riots. The report, I've just skimmed it, says specifically that the places where the riots were most serious last summer is where the greatest number of Afghans have been settled. So the report actually says that. So they actually forecast that would happen. So, there are obvious sort of causes and effects here. But I suspect that this is the tip of the iceberg. I think the rest of the immigration sector is like a kettle waiting to boil over as well. And I think I'll give you an example in Portsmouth, where I live. We've had a situation where the local council has deliberately suppressed sexual attacks by migrants in the interests of community relations. This sort of conspiracy against the public is now getting a national level to shield people from the consequences of mass migration and uncontrolled entry into our country.
As a military man, you would agree with what I'm going to say. Surely the first rule of any government is to protect its people in terms of their safety and socially, politically, morally, defence-wise, right? Our borders are open. We're letting people in. Yes, this was human error, but the fact of the matter is 18,714 Afghans allowed into this country. Somebody just sent an email that people will say is conspiratorial, but it said, what if some of them were Taliban? Pretend it. It beggars belief, right? We've got borders that are open. We've got a police force that doesn't really want to prosecute or arrest anybody because they're too busy trying to not upset people. We've got a two-tier justice system that allows Bob Villan to say, let's kill Jews. He's still walking free, Percy, right? Lucy Connolly's in jail for writing, yes, very bad words, but surely there was a better way of dealing with her. It's all higgledy, not even the right word, higgledy. It's an embarrassment increasingly. And ministers are saying there could be riots because we kept it from the British people. And I'm all for a bang against Starmer's government, but this was the Tories that made this decision. The Tories, Chris.
Yeah, it's a whole political class, Jeremy. The whole business of government is minimising the inconvenience for them. It's not about actually producing the outcomes that are required by British people. It seems to me that the British community, nobody's really worried about upsetting or offending us. Everybody else gets, to be protected from being offended, but, not us. I think they're storing up problems. As I said, this casual incompetence is becoming systemic now, and it's not the British way, to tell you the truth. And I'm afraid we're putting up with this sort of level of betrayal, this level of dissimulation from our political class at national and local level, and people aren't going to put up with it. They're going to say, we're not being represented, why should we pay taxation? That'll be the next move, and people are going to take the law into their own hands. It's as simple as that. And the government, as you say, have actually sort of said this could lead to riots. Well, yeah, your policy is leading to riots. Go figure.
Couldn't agree more. Listen, I could talk to you forever, mate, but I'm up against the clock. I do apologise for that, but we love having you on. Our go-to man, Rear Admiral Chris Parry, there on Talk Drive, 8 minutes to 5.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 5 to 5. Don't forget, if you want to be on 0344 499 1000, Jody taking your calls. Ryan's doing your voice notes. If you want to do it on WhatsApp, start your note with the what's on your trousers, Ryan. I'll tell you more. You can text 87222. Stephen Cambridge says, Chairs, accountability only seems to happen in the private sector. Look at the post office scandal. No one in court. Or jail. The same will no doubt happen with the rape gang scandal. Politicians that do harm don't really pay for their sins. This country is a disgrace. Graham Pack says, from Bushy, where I was conceived, with all your problems with the trains, you're not getting much value with your senior rail card. You can pack it in. See what I did? That was quite clever. Rubbish. Our next caller was on earlier, but his phone was crap. Ryan said, this is what Ryan said to me. I said, is his line good? He went, I have heard him count from 1 to 10, and I heard every number. So if this goes wrong again, this is on Ryan. Carl in Hampshire, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm really upset. I thought I might be bad again and then I could have a go at Ryan. Very good. 2 minutes. What do you want to talk about? The BBC, I believe, right?
Yeah, the BBC dead quickly, because I just wanted to digress to something else, if that's okay. So the BBC have not paid my TV licence for 30 years, legally, I might add.
Yes.
I successfully argued in court that there's no such thing as live TV, because every broadcaster has an inherent delay built in.
Sorry, who's been... Oh, hold on a second. We got breaking news. I do apologise, and this is relevant to your story. The BBC have just sacked John Redwood from MasterChef. The BBC have just sacked John Redwood from MasterChef. That's breaking news on Talk. Maybe you can respond to that, Carl. You haven't paid your BBC licence fee legally for 30 years. What's your response to that breaking news story?
That's a shame, because they wanted him out because, obviously, if the other guy's gone, they wanted him out so they can bring a brand new team in.
Be interesting to see who gets the job. He said on Monday an allegation against him for using racist language was upheld. He said yesterday he had no recollection of the incidents. I do not believe that it happened, but on Tuesday it emerged he had been dismissed. It plunges the BBC cooking show into deeper crisis after more than 40 separate allegations against co-host Greg Wallace were also upheld. The BBC in still... Can I ask you, as a person who hasn't paid their licence fee legally, very quickly, do you think the BBC is out of order? It doesn't seem to be able to clean up its own mess. It seems to mark its own homework, and it seems to demand money still from the British people that, frankly, I don't think it deserves, man.
They are self-regulating, which is always a problem. Whenever you have a self-regulating body, there is never going to be any fault. So they will sit there and put patsies up and fire them to make the public feel placated, and that's not what's happening. They've put a... OK, somebody's said a racist remark innocently, maybe, or just as a passing remark. I don't know. I don't know the ins and outs of the story. But you have a live broadcast of this idiot at Glastonbury, and nothing's been done. 2 weeks
Carl, I actually couldn't agree with you more. And thank you, by the way, for your call. I really appreciate it. I'm just going to do I just want to explain my view on this, right? In no way am I condoning whatever Redwood is alleged to have said or what Greg Wallace has said. But I said something in the office earlier, and I mean this. I think if you go back, the world has changed, and many would say for the better. And I would agree, in many instances, for the better. But I think I was talking to so many people who've been on television about this. I could go around and I could find something on everybody. I could go around this office and find something on anybody if I was that sort of journalist. That doesn't condone people I mean, I hate racism, and I think that what Wallace did patently from what was upheld was wrong. But you are going to get to a point where my fear is that anybody, certainly on television, on radio, is going to be I said it before, too scared of losing their jobs, they forget to do their bloody jobs, right? I mean, it happens in life as well. People are now watching what they say, which is a good thing in many instances, but I don't know, to me, it just changes so many dynamics. Love to know what you think. John Redwood has just been sacked by the BBC. It's breaking news on Talk Drive. It's almost 5 o'clock. We'll do that on the news and other stuff as well. What a day it's been. 0344 499 1000. You might want to talk about migrants getting millions of them getting universal credit. Do that in the news. More with Isabel after the news.
across the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Hello, welcome back. Hour 2 of Drive. For Tuesday, we're live across the UK on Talk, the home of free speech and common sense. So much in the news, that breaking news that we heard in our news. John Redwood has been sacked as a MasterChef presenter in the last few minutes after it emerged that an allegation against him of using racist language was upheld during the inquiry that also found his co-host Greg Wallace. 40 separate allegations were upheld. He'd already gone. On Monday, Redwood said that he had no recollection of the incidents, adding, I do not believe that it happened, but today the BBC has cast him aside. Pete says, great news, no more toads to roll. Holly, though, says, just heard the breaking news and I'm absolutely disgusted. If anybody should be sacked, it's Tim Davie. The man's a complete letdown and needs to get a backbone, grow a spine and own it and resign, because it's on and on with the BBC. If you're watching on YouTube, Tim Davie on there now probably making an excuse. Let's just talk about the BBC. You start with Savile, you end with MasterChef. Add in that Bob Villain. That was allowed to continue on demand. A man on stage performing on the BBC Live, calling for the death of the IDF, which is essentially let's kill Jews. I'm not condoning any... Dreadful. The BBC running that Hamas documentary. Did you hear about that? The Hamas documentary. Well, I call it the Hamas. It was. It was about Gaza and how difficult and horrible the position was. Turns out it was voiced by a 13-year-old son of a Hamas official, and the BBC knew about it. Yet more apologies. Hugh Edwards, a paedophile, is still being paid his pension by you and I, the British public. He didn't go to jail. The BBC is still paying him, or did for 6 months after they knew what he was up to, but they couldn't apparently change it. The world's gone... I mean, to me, it's crazy. Utterly, utterly crazy. And this isn't the alternative media jumping in on the BBC. Listen, I grew up watching the BBC. It was a national institution. It was fantastic. It is no longer a fantastic national institution. It is biased. It is woke. And frankly, in a broadcasting world, is it value for money? Is it Heller's light? Let's go to Peterborough. June, you're on Talk Drive. A couple of minutes. What you got?
Hello, is that Jeremy?
Hello. Yes, this is Jeremy calling June. Is that June?
Yes, it is.
Hello, June. It's Jezza. How are you?
Not very good. Not very good, Jeremy.
No,
Not
neither. What do you want to moan about? The universal benefits?
I just told your operator I've been in bed afternoon because I've not been well.
Oh.
And I've got up today. Oh. No, it's just oldness and different things. I got up today and I've put you on, and I cannot believe what I'm listening to. I can't believe it. And I said to you all, my dad was in the war, and I know I'm bringing that in, and I don't mean it to be like that. My dad was in the war for 5 years. I see him twice. My mum had a photograph of him on the mantelpiece, so I could remember him, right? I didn't really know him when he came home. He was a stranger. He was a stranger. What respect have we got for our soldiers who fought in that Second World War? What?
Yep.
And this Labour government, I knew what they would be like because I can remember the 70s.
And me.
This Labour government is a disgrace to our country. That Ed Miliband, how does he think the likes of people working class could afford electric cars? How can it? And I lived in London, Newham. How are they going to put them things in front of the houses? Do they think someone told me they're going to be copper? That won't last 2 minutes. They'll take that money. They are wasting and wasting. And now, universal credit, Jeremy, I've got to go because my country is lost.
I'd tell you something, right? I'm being completely honest.
I'm sorry if I'm going off. I am so sorry. I can cry my eyes out.
No, mate, listen, you absolutely epitomise, and I'm being completely serious why I do this show, because sometimes I get on the train to go home when it comes, because it's crap, like everything else in this country, and I sit there, right, June, and I think, is it me? Have I just become this angry, bitter man. And I think about a country that's supposed to look after its people, protect its borders, have a strong police force and low taxation. I look at us, and what we do is we allow our country to invite anybody to the detriment of anybody who's paid their taxes. We've got no military or a laughing stock in the world. Our National Health Service is out of control. And now we discover that actually people come to this country. I mean, just to give you just to make your evening worse. You know this story about universal benefits and they can be on all of this money, 1 million of them, right? You know the story about the data breach where there's 18,000 plus Afghans who have come to this country secretly?
Yeah, I didn't hear that.
Yeah, an email went to the wrong thing, so everybody panicked a few years ago and went, all these poor Afghans will be attacked by the Taliban, so we'll bring them to Britain. I've just found out during the break they can bring their families and their children as well. It could be sort of 40, 50,000 for Christ's sake. And what you are saying, my darling, is exactly what millions of Brits are saying. We're not far right, we're not antisocial, we're not racist, we're actually hard-working, tax-paying, law-abiding people who are beginning to question any government of any colour and any creed and any political persuasion, why we who are living our lives correctly are being screwed on a daily basis. That's the truth, Jude, isn't it?
Did you know, Jeremy, a lot of people are telling their children, and my daughter's just said it. She's phoned you before. She comes from West Ham. She's a West Ham fan.
Good girl.
And she said to me, you know, Mum, if I was younger, I'd go, and she wants her children. She said, one is in Las Vegas. He was in the RAF for 21 years. 21 years nearly. And I'll tell you what, I don't blame anybody because I feel that nothing against colour, it's against the government because they're not doing anything.
Couldn't agree with you anymore. June in Peterborough, honorary member of Drive Time. You can come on whenever. We're going to go to our next guest. Mark in Birmingham will get to you, and everybody else who's called 0344 499 1000. Apparently, during that break, Isabel Oakeshott is not Isabel Oakeshott. She got called away, but I didn't get told that. She has transformed into Sir John Redwood, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, on a Tuesday. Good afternoon, Sir John Redwood. How are you?
I'm in good form, Germany. All the better for hearing some common sense.
Well,
hearing the great British public telling it like it is.
June 84, almost in tears. Her father fought in the Second World War, beside herself. John, I'm going to run through because I don't think there's been a day like this for a while. We discovered today that more than 1 million migrants are claiming benefits in Britain, with the majority unemployed. Now, we have to make the legal note that illegal migrants cannot claim universal credit, but foreign nationals can access universal credit and benefits like British citizens once they have indefinite leave to remain or refugee status. So because we're too incompetent to have a processing system, all the people that come here and sit around for months and weeks and years, they're getting universal credit. And John Redwood, again, we cannot afford the interest on our debts, and we're saying to people, come in, bring your families, we'll give you money for nothing. What is wrong with us, man?
Well, what's been wrong with us is we've had a Treasury and successive governments that thought that inviting a lot of people into our country to take low-paid jobs or inviting a lot of dependents into our country didn't come with a cost, and we'd all be happy about it, and we weren't. And I and a few others were shouting in the last Parliament saying, for goodness sake, control our borders. We can't afford all this. And the Treasury doctrine was, oh, you know, they come in, they do jobs on the cheap, they'll undercut the people already here, they'll make a contribution to our economy. Well, they forgot, the Treasury, who were meant to know all about numbers, that they need subsidised homes and they need free public services and they need benefit top-ups, and their dependents might need quite a lot of benefits and quite a lot of public service. And they didn't seem to score any of that in all their number crunching. And so we, the public, were left saying, well, it's quite obvious we can't afford all this. And they were just saying, oh, no, it's good for the economy. And I'm afraid they were wrong again.
Couldn't agree more.
Let's hope this government starts to stand up to them. It's about time somebody said to these clever officials, you have been systematically wrong. You've really annoyed the public in a big way. There are far too many people coming into this country. I mean, why are we running out of water? Oh, they say, well, because we've had a few weeks without enough rain. The main reason we're running out of water is we've had 10 million extra people in the country without a single new reservoir being constructed. Now, why on earth didn't the regulators and the governments wake up and think, you know, if we're going to invite all these people in, we do need to flood a few valleys, because otherwise we're going to run out of water.
Couldn't agree more. And actually, I mean, this is an interesting one. How the heck, says Pete, did we end up supporting over 1 million migrants with universal credit? This also entitles them to other benefits too, plus, of course, use of the NHS. When will we be told how much this is costing? How much is it expected to rise as applications for asylum go through? And what steps are being taken to get them off the taxpayers' payroll? Because as far as I can see it, he says, taxes will go up again. I said this earlier, and I'd love your take. Ex-cabinet minister and a man who, and I've said it and I'll say it forever, you should have led the Tory party because you speak common sense. Explain to me whether, like me, somewhere inside you, there's a belief that enough is enough amongst... the British people, I think, are approaching the end of their tether. I'm not talking about far-right thugs. I'm not talking about taking to the streets. But I am beginning to hear repeatedly, daily, why do I live my life correctly? Why do I not break the law? Why do I not ask for a handout? Why do I pay my taxes? When seemingly now we live in a country whereby you can come in and get more than if you've come from here and you've lived and you've paid. If you perpetrate a crime, you seem to be treated or made an excuse for far more than victims. You get access to everything that nobody else does. And people feel like they're really second-class citizens. And I hate this next phrase, I apologise if it offends anybody, in their own bloody countries, John.
Well, that's exactly right. And I've never known people so angry. They've been very, very angry for the last couple of years. They taught the Tories a big lesson in the general election. They ended up with a Labour government. They now want to teach the Labour government the same lesson because they feel it's got worse, not better. And I can understand why they feel that. I mean, let's take this question of all these people coming in as illegal migrants. Now, we know a lot of them are young men wanting a better life and wanting the job opportunities here. They are not true asylum seekers or refugees. Labour says, well, what we're going to do is we're going to clear the backlog. Well, if you clear the backlog of all these cases by letting practically all of them stay here, you've got a much bigger problem. That isn't the solution we want. We want a system which says that if you're not a genuine asylum seeker or a refugee, you shouldn't be here, you're illegal, and you're going to go back somewhere. And Labour scrapped the one scheme the previous government was labouring over to try and get a place to send them to act as a deterrent. It was just beginning to work. We were getting complaints from Ireland saying, you know what, we're getting more migrants now because they don't fancy a trip to Rwanda. That's all scrapped. And what have we got instead? This ridiculous idea from Sir Keir Starmer that we might be able to send one back for every 17 who arrive, as long as we take somebody else in return. So far from controlling the numbers, it's creating a new route for yet more people to try and make up claims to find an easier way into the country. This is why people are mad about it all. They don't want their taxes up when they see all these extra people coming along and getting the free houses and getting the benefits and the free public services, which people already settled here would quite like at realistic tax levels, because we don't have to supply it to several millions others.
Could not agree more. Let's add to you this other story today. I mean, this happened under the Tories. I'd love to know what you make of it. Thousands of Afghans have secretly been relocated to the UK over the last couple of years after a huge £7 billion email blunder. A Royal Marine sent a secret email containing the details of Afghan refugees fleeing the Taliban to the wrong people. The list also included names of their individual UK sponsors, also the SAS, MI6 and a Royal Marine Major General. The clumsy error has the potential, Sir John Redwood, to be the most expensive data breach in British history. A total of 18,714 Afghans were included in the secret list, many of whom arrived via unmarked planes and landed at Stansted. Now, I add to that, because I found this out 20 minutes ago, they were also able to bring their families and children. That could be 50,000 people. Ministers have warned there could be riots because the Conservative government decided to get a super injunction so the British people didn't need to find out. That's now been lifted by a judge. I know this is a long question, but hear me out. One of my bugbears with Southport was that I think the government probably knew pretty early that this Rudabakana was a Welsh choir boy gone wrong, not an illegal migrant which was doing the rounds on social media. My argument then was that if they'd been more transparent, then that would have quelled the situation. My fear is that they didn't want to because it served their ideology. Why on earth did the Tories hide this and take out a super injunction? Not your fault, but I have to ask you, it was your government.
Well, their defence that I've heard today is that they were told that quite a few people on this list would be at real threat of death or violence by the Afghan regime. This was a mistake made by an official. This has nothing to do with ministers. They had to try and rescue a disastrous situation. And I can understand why they took advice, because they didn't want to be responsible for the death of a lot of people because of the incompetence of the British civil service. But I think it is right that this should now move on and things should be changed. So I don't query what the Labour Party is doing. I note that Labour lived with the suspension of the truth for a year as well, because they obviously accepted the same argument. Indeed, they were briefed on a privileged basis by the Conservative ministers when they did it, so they fully knew what was going on. I think it was a very difficult decision for a minister to make. I think it's probably better we now know and we stop the schemes and accept that there hasn't been that extreme violence. But there's still a danger in all this for these people, and but there is. But is it an unforgivable mistake?
But is it unfair to say that when we consider what we've just been talking about, when we consider the overall vibe in this country that you and I have touched upon, that it would be perfectly justifiable, as people have texted me and emailed me already, to say, so that's nearly another 20,000 people that you've let into your country who you don't know who the hell they are. And I'm not saying that any of these might be criminals or wrong-uns, but surely the first part of any government is to protect its people. And if your borders are open and you're letting people in for whatever reasons, that's not a good thing, is it? Certainly not in this climate.
No, and it looks as if the numbers are getting out of control, and one wants to ask, well, why are all these people attached to this? But if there were a limited number of people, as I think ministers were told, who had given a lot of help to the British authorities and have been working alongside our troops in Afghanistan, and they were suddenly at threat of a nasty murder, I can see why you'd want to help them. But to extend that for 2, 3, 4 years and extend it into many, many more people who had a loose affiliation or a weak claim is exactly what we don't want. And that seems to be what was happening.
Your experience as a cabinet minister, the final story I want to talk about is Ed Miliband.
Yeah.
I don't understand. There's a lot I don't understand about Ed Miliband, but without being rude to him, supported by that energy tycoon Dale Vince today, who they both seem to think it would be a good idea for anybody who's not in agreement with net zero to be arrested. Shrill scare campaign. He says that people who blasted my green policies are anti-science, anti-jobs, anti-energy security and anti-future generations. He unveiled plans to make an annual State of the Climate address. God, he really has disappeared somewhere up his backside. Warning rising temperatures and extreme weather already hitting Britain. He cited a new Met Office report predicting more heat waves, floods and risks to food supplies and infrastructure. And he claimed the economic fallout of global warming could reach 200 billion by the 2070s. Backed up by Vince, who said people who call it stupid net zero and stuff should be arrested. Explain this to me as a minister, because you said something the other day that made perfect sense. You're in charge of energy, and I'd say to you as a Prime Minister, well, we can't afford to pay the interest on the debts we've got. We're really screwed, John. The hospitals can't do appointments, doctors can't. We've got no military, the borders are running amok. Do we really think it's a good idea to be spending billions of pounds to achieve a figure that, even if we do achieve it, I'm not sure what happens. Do we get a medal when we get there? Because the rest of the world doesn't seem as confused or as worried about it as we are. Would we not, John, Energy Minister, be better off spending that money on people in Britain who are struggling with their energy bills, by the way? Because we've got all this energy, but what would you say to me?
Well, if I was the Energy Minister, I'd say too right, and I'm changing the policy immediately, because the policy is ridiculous in its own terms, Jeremy. If you buy into all Miliband's interpretation of science and the situation, all his policies create more world CO2, not less. They cancel our British industries here to import goods from abroad, where they then generate the equivalent CO2. And you've got all the extra CO2 from the marine diesel to ship everything in here. Even worse with the oil and gas, they won't let us get our own oil and gas out of the North Sea. So we buy liquefied natural gas from Qatar or from America, which is 4 times the amount of CO2 in total to do all the things you need to do to it, to get it into the right shape and reconvert it and carry it all around the world. And this man doesn't seem to understand this very basic point, that even if he's carbon counting, he's completely wrong. And he needs to apologise and understand that that is costing us well-paid jobs in Britain, transferring them to America and Qatar. It's costing us a fortune in lost taxation revenue to the Treasury, because The Treasury puts such high taxes on domestic oil and gas. All that tax revenue goes to the foreign supplier. And he's making sure that we look idiotic because we're already the one that's cut our CO2 most. But if you add back in all the CO2 we're generating on the imports we need, the world's no better off. And we're a lot worse off because instead of making things for ourselves, we depend on the goodwill of foreigners. I mean, it is a disastrous policy, Jeremy.
Completely agree with you. JR, listen, honest to God, man, every time it's like having somebody that actually agrees with everything that you say. You're my inspiration. We love having you on. We thank you for a Tuesday. So John Redwood, former Conservative Cabinet Minister, describing Ed Miliband's net zero policy as the most ludicrous thing in the history of the world. What do you make of the news today, peeps? Universal credit to 1 million migrants, a huge data blunder that's meant that nearly 20,000 Afghans are in our country. We don't know who they are, possibly more with their family and friends. And the BBC, oh yeah, just gets better and better. Whenever there's a story about the BBC, who can I phone? Adrian Mills is next.
Well, all attention now really focusing on the autumn budget. We know that Rachel Reeves is going to have to raise taxes to stay within those fiscal rules, which she has set herself. She can't increase borrowing day to day, and it looks like the growth is going to come and save her. So it seems that after big retreats on welfare, winter fuel allowance, downgraded productivity forecasts, it looks that she's going to have to raise taxes in some capacity. And as political journalists, we're trying to read the runes in terms of where the axe will fall.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is...
Welcome back, 5:27. We're live across the United Kingdom. Talk Drive on the home of free speech and common sense. JK till 7, please, if you want to be on. Loads to talk about today. Loads of you were lining up. 0344 499 1000. Pete, Paula, Paul Bolton, loving June, the 84-year-old lady who says, what has happened to my bleeding country? Phil in Portsmouth, good afternoon. I live in a block of flats. How am I supposed to charge a bleeding electric car? I can never even afford to buy one anyway. And oh, by the way, I don't want one. Kevin, my son... my son lives in Oz. and I've told him not to come home back here because it's finished, and I hope my other two sons follow him. It breaks my heart to have to tell them to leave this place, but this country is on its backside. What do you make of that, my friends? 0344 499 1000. We broke the news half an hour ago that John Redwood has now been sacked as a MasterChef presenter after it emerged that an allegation against him of using apparent racist language some years ago was upheld during that inquiry into the conduct of his co-host Greg Wallace. You'll know that he, of course, was sacked. 40 separate allegations upheld. Yesterday, Redwood in the Sun said, I have no recollection of the incident. I don't think it happened. Today, the BBC has dismissed John Redwood. Greg Wallace has responded by saying that TV, specifically the BBC, has become a dangerous place for working-class men. Interesting. Only one person, a man who fronted with the unbelievably talented Dame Esther Ranson, the most successful show. To put it into context, right? I mean, you know, I used to do a show I got 2 million views. This man got 20 million with his eyes closed. He's that good. Adrian Mills, good afternoon, sir. How are you?
I'm very well, Jeremy. Slightly concerned for you because I think your blood pressure's gone through the roof today.
Did I read the intro that you wrote for me on WhatsApp? Did it make you sound very important? And stop sitting in front of books, man. We know that you don't read. What's going on? What's going on, Mills? God.
Live from the British Library.
Right, yeah. Listen, even you, my dear friend, are going to struggle because this ain't going away, mate. I mean, this is becoming the organisation that you worked for and the organisation that you very rightly in your mind have defended. This is getting to the point where, forget inside the M25, people are saying in their millions, this isn't fit for purpose. This has a political agenda and an ideology. This does not clean up. This gets worse and worse. Heads should have rolled. How can Tim Davie... I mean... Where do I start? Jimmy Savile. Where do I end? MasterChef. Let's add in Bob Vyland, that horrible, revolting human being that called for the death of Jews. Still there. I mean, the BBC is in meltdown, and that's not me exaggerating, isn't it?
Well, Jeremy, you used to phone me, and your producer, Jodie, would contact me and say, oh, could you come on and talk about the BBC? And I'd be delighted to. And it'd be once in a blue moon. But as you know, and I know, it's now nearly every single week. Yeah. And I totally agree. I am slightly surprised by the Redwood sacking, though, because that apparently is an allegation that he doesn't remember. Nobody has really sort of backed that one up. And it happened between 2018 and 2019. Well, I can jump in with that, right? Because you know what I went through, right? And I'm not sure. Here to condone. I'm not here to condone anything that either of them did in any which way. But I repeat something I said earlier, and you might disagree. I bet I could find something on anybody that's ever been on television, that's ever been in a green room, that's ever been in a makeup room, that's ever been bleeding anywhere near a television station if you look hard enough. I'm not condoning or sticking up for, but that to me is the BBC cleansing themselves. Redwood, you're gone. Wallace was a bad egg. That's it. I'll start again. It'd be interesting to see, as somebody said, which isn't perhaps politically correct, be interesting to see who the new presenters are. They won't be white middle-class men, will they? I suspect they've already got people lined up for it. You go back on that working class thing as well, by the way, and I wanted to pick up on that Greg Wallace saying, you know, it's a bad place for, there is no place for working class people. But if you actually analyse it, if you look at television in general, and I was just going through a few names, you've got Lorraine. Lorraine was told when she started her career on ITV that your accent is never going to work, you're not going to last long. Here she is, God knows how many years later. Then you've got 40. People like... Yeah, amazing, really. Then you've got Stacey Solomon, you've got Danny Dyer. Danny Dyer, probably absolutely the most potty-mouthed bloke you could ever wish to meet. I've sat next to it, many a do. However, he was given a primetime BBC programme and he was impeccable. He was really good presenting it because he abided by the script. But if you are a presenter that actually thinks you're as cocky as hell and can get away with it, there's always going to be a nightmare to deal with. But also you've got to look at who are the producers that allowed him to get away with it.
But isn't there something else, Aid, as well? And I'm not taking up a position because people will knock me down for this. But here's what I'm going to say. If you employ somebody knowing that they are, right, a cheeky Italian chef or a potty-mouthed East End fruit and veg salesman or a car salesman, or if you buy a character, is it fair then when the world changes to completely and utterly destroy that person's life. Don't get me wrong. Whenever I talk about this, people say, I'm not condoning anything that John Redwood or anybody's ever done on television, right? But you're right. What about the bosses of these TV organisations? What about the production teams? What about all the people behind? It's very easy to take one person. So Tim Davie is the obvious bloody example. Tim Davie, how many more disasters? Hugh Edwards, is this man, how many lives has he got?
I would suspect, if you know, the 9 lives of a cat, I think you're probably on the last one. Because inevitable, it builds and builds and builds, and then people go, whoa. It rots from the head downwards, and you actually, after a while, have to fall on your sword. But the individual production companies that make these programmes outside of the BBC then sell them into the programme. They will continue. Their producers will still be there. Their heads of departments will still be going strong. And you're absolutely right. I've worked on a couple of programmes with people I thought, oh, dear, he's a bit dodgy. She's not that good. But funny enough, when the firing line starts, it's the presenters that go and the producers just go.
I agree with that, but I also take issue slightly with what you're saying about outside production houses, because the networks commission those shows. So for me, there's a responsibility, be it ITV or Channel 4 or the BBC. If I've employed Banjay to make whatever they MasterChef, I would expect execs from the BBC to be all over that. If you're just going to commission it and pass the buck, and that, listen, I was lucky. ITV were very supportive of me. I'll say that publicly. But I'm not condoning any of this behaviour, but it's very easy. Tim Davie must be on the thinnest of ice, but perhaps more upsetting. And I talk about Esther Ranson, who, listen, Jesus, how good was that programme that you did? And I mean it, right? Different world, different class. Barrymore, for all his problems, got 20 million for half an hour with Striker Lucky. The world is a different place. But is it fair, with all this cancel culture, with this, you know, laser beam attention, is it always fair for it to be the presenter? I can't think it is, and I think Davie and execs need to take responsibility, man. I feel sorry for people who believe in the BBC.
Well, no, I don't think it is. And that's why I picked on the Redwood example. I was actually quite shocked that he was sacked, because this is one allegation by one person who then apparently said, oh, and Redwood apologised about it. So and exactly as you say, oh, maybe I shouldn't be saying that in this day and age. I do apologise. That's gone, let it go. But one person has made a comment about it, and he has lost his career with the BBC at this moment in time. Different matter with Greg Wallace, because you've got numerous allegations. But the very fact that actually dropping your pants and sexist comments and God knows what, that nobody has picked up on this over the years is astounding.
I mean, that's the other thing, isn't it? So if you are, you know, people will think I've got a personal vendetta. I haven't. If you're an exec or a director of television or a commissioning editor or a head of a network, and a show's doing really, really well, and it's getting figures and money and everything, do you turn a blind eye? And then when the whole world collapses, you go like, I don't know, I just feel like I learnt a long time ago, if you go around any office, you could find something on everybody. I worry that I don't worry anymore, because I had it, but you're going to be saying, do you know, 20 years ago, you might have said that. I've heard that, and I wouldn't disrespect them. I can tell you 2 really, really, really successful, famous television male presenters who don't want to ever go on television again because they think they'll be next in line, and they did television for many, many years. And I just think that's a bit sad, really.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, you've named a whole load of people there. I'll throw another one in. Russell Brand. You know, he was, isn't he great? Isn't he funny? Isn't he slightly sleazy? But actually, he's great value for money. And it's almost like these executive producers have a very blinkered vision that as long as we're getting the ratings, as long as we're getting news and reports in the press and online media, then everything is brilliant and we'll go with it. And they're such a... And they'll get invited to all the awards ceremonies. They'll get invited. They'll get premiere tickets to this, that and the other. But I tell you something, you don't half lose your friends when it all goes pear-shaped. And people now will be stepping back. And I do feel
You think I don't know that? God,
yeah. Jeremy. Yeah, well, exactly. It's ridiculous. But, you know, it's a very shallow industry.
Very.
And I tell you something, even from my point of view, I would like to think, and it sounds pathetic and, you know, puritanical, but I was probably whiter than white when I worked for the BBC. However, when That's Life finished, you think a programme that for 7 years, for me, got 20 million viewers, Did anybody from the BBC come knocking at my door and say, we'd like to employ you? No, we've used you now. Move on to the next. What's the next thing? So you have to treat it, as my gran used to say, chewing gum for the eyes.
Couldn't agree more. Love you, love everything you say, but you need to share a very important moment with me because my wife has just texted. This is really sad, peeps.
Go on.
Iris, who's 18 months old, has just been stung on her finger by a wasp.
Oi. Yeah. Please, kiss it better.
Well, I'm not there. Thank you very much indeed. God bless you. Thank you very much indeed. Adrian Mills. What is it? 23 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the United Kingdom. Loads to talk about today. Universal credit to 1 million migrants. 20,000+ possibly Afghans allowed into this country without us knowing because of a major security breach. The BBC has this evening sacked John Redwood from MasterChef. They've both gone. What, they're cleansing themselves? How come Tim Davies still got a job, for Christ's sake? And just to make you choose to even worse, that complete idiot, Ed Miliband, wants it to be known that people who disagree with Net Stupid Zero should face criminal proceedings. I think he should be deported. That would be my opinion. This is Talk Drive.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
About 20 to 6, Julia at 10, and the legend that is Mike Graham back from 6 o'clock tomorrow morning with Morning Glory. You'll have heard the news today that thousands of Afghans have secretly been relocated to the UK. Could cost upwards of $7 billion. An email blunder, a civil servant, somebody in the department of the military department. What is the name of it? What's it called? The defence. Thank you, Jeremy. Basically sent the email, and it had details of Afghan refugees fleeing the Taliban to the wrong people. The government, and this was the Tory government years ago, decided that that meant these people were in danger from the Taliban. A total of 18,714 Afghans included, many of whom arrived via unmarked planes which landed at Stansted Airport. We found out an hour ago that could include their families. Now, irrespective of, yes, I agree, what they did for this country, did they all? I don't know. But the truth of the matter is, even ministers are saying there could be riots when this super injunction that was taken out 3 years ago has been lifted, which it has, the British public now know. And we're all saying, well, hold on a minute, more people in this country that we don't know about. This is really scary. This is what Nigel Farage said about the Afghan data leak scandal just now. Have a listen.
Amongst the number that have come are convicted sex offenders. I am not, I promise you, making any of this up. And the total cost of the operation has been a staggering £7 billion. of those that came, none of them were included in the immigration figures. There has been a total veil of secrecy put upon this by the last Conservative government and frankly carried on until now by the current Labour government. The numbers are off the charts. The cost is beyond comprehension, and the threat to women walking the streets of this country, frankly, is incalculable. I can't think of a better example of the total incompetence, dishonesty, and genuine lack of understanding what the priorities of a British government are than this Afghan scandal.
Got to agree with everything he says, haven't you? What are your thoughts? 0344 499 1000. That's Nigel Farage's response. What does Alan in Salford think? You're on Talk Drive, Al. Good evening.
Good evening. Well, I'm throwing up, to be honest. Yeah, it's the Tories as well, by the way. But, remember Mr Starmer when he started this year? We're going to be a different group. We're going to be transparent, open.
Mm-hmm.
Nonsense. He's a liar. He's been a liar since he started. But it's scandalous. 7 billion. That I'm a pensioner, so there's 3.5 billion for our winter fuel allowance.
No. I can do better than that.
Go on.
Screwing all the pensioners would only have saved 1.5 billion, OK?
Oh, I thought it was 3.5 billion.
No. That's about a fifth of this. The appalling thing about this is that the left is, right, and everybody else will say, and we have to listen to this argument to a degree, that these people helped Brits get out, although I suspect these people were Anyway, there we go. Were they translators? I don't know. I'm being completely honest with you, all right?
Yep.
The problem I have is transparency. I said it earlier, I'd love your response. With the Southport riots, I know that this government knew that Rugby was not he wasn't an illegal migrant, he was a choir boy from Wales who went wrong, right? But that was doing the rounds on social media and people were getting more and more angry and the government let that play out. Then people took to the streets and they called everybody far right and arrested them, right? They could have been more transparent earlier on with Southport and I think that would have quelled it to a degree. This has been a super injunction, which is the highest gagging order you can get in the High Court. This was taken out by the Tories, continued by Labour. Both of them are responsible for this. Because ministers now are saying that now the British public know this is going to really annoy them and there could be riots because it's another 20,000+ people into this country. Nigel says that some are sex offenders, some are criminals. I don't know if that's true. What I do know is more people in this country that we don't know who the bloody hell they are. That's not safety, is it?
It's not definitely not safety. We need... It's the national emergency. My God, you've never seen out like it.
No, me.
The war, it was coming over, just trying to get over here. Millions of troops. They couldn't do it, but they can do it on a rubber dinghy. What is wrong with this country? I'm sorry.
No, mate, I said earlier to June, who was crying, I was saying to June, who was crying earlier, I sit sometimes and I'm not on air and I think, is it me? Do I need to try? It's madness, mate. We're glad of your support. Alan in Salford. Let's head to Wiltshire. Laura, sorry, my darling, couple of minutes. How are you? Welcome to Talk Drive.
I'm fine. We both turned 60 since we last spoke.
Oh, when were you 60?
I was 60 on the 10th, just after you.
Oh, and how do you feel? Does everything ache in the morning?
I'm fantastic. And I got my senior rail card.
I've got my senior rail card. I've got my senior... I'm very proud.
My daughter had to do it for me on the phone.
My wife had to do it for me. Right, I'm not going to show it for too long, but there you are. There you are. Senior... Look, shush. There you are. Senior rail card. Very proud. Right, what you got? Tell me.
So I am absolutely livid. Macro, universal credit for all migrants, to micro. My gorgeous 26-year-old daughter has been seeing a fantastic American guy for 2.5 years and been toing and flying from America. She works full-time here. He's self-employed, very successful, completely financially independent. They want to see if he's going to work here. Can he come here and rent somewhere? Can he come here and do anything? Pretty much. He doesn't want to throw his passport in the channel. He's self-employed. He wants to have nothing from here. But it is outrageous. If you're playing by the rules, Jez, they make it really, really hard for you.
And that's I think that is, and I said it earlier, and I think that is really, at the end of the day, for people, like-minded people to us, I think that's a perfectly justifiable criticism. I'm all for, right, when we were not skint, I'm all for doing our bit for other people. But the whole idea of two things, and I mean this genuinely, this is me as a voter speaking. I think the invention of the welfare state and the National Health Service is two of the greatest and most wonderful things this country could ever have done, which is to help people who can't help themselves. But unless we utterly accept that it is now totally open to any bugger who comes to this country, and let's add the caveat, to the detriment of people who have paid for it, who can't see a doctor or a dentist or get anything, but you can come here and get everything, it's chaos. Margaret Thatcher said it in the 80s. It's absolute bloody chaos, and it's not going to get better.
And Jez, you know, I work in design, whatever, work with normal, ordinary working tradesmen, people with real skills every day. Time of year they get to work at 7 o'clock in the morning. They work hard until 5. It's blooming hot. And people here in Wiltshire, proper local Wiltshire builders, are militant. And what you are saying about this awful feeling of uprising outside London is genuine. People here, these guys who are in their 40s, 50s, really graft, are furious.
Yeah.
And I really worry what is going to happen.
I don't listen. I mean, we obviously have a responsibility. I don't want anybody to do anything, but I do think the British people need to believe. I hope they do believe that their voice is really important. And for politicians of all political parties, the Tory party, the Labour Party, Reform, they want to understand. It's no longer good enough for it to be rhetoric. They need to understand that the British people want action. And whether it's taking on the blob or taking on the French or closing the borders or increasing the military capability or standing up to the European Union or whatever it is, the British people, I think, are going to start to demand that. Listen, Laura, lovely to speak to you. My respect and regards to everybody in Wiltshire. Thank you for your call. 11 minutes to 6 o'clock. JK says, Sean, why would I change my perfectly good Mercedes diesel that I regularly get just under 800 miles out of a tank for a poxy electric car that won't get anywhere near that range and will take hours to charge? I believe, says Sean in Gloucester, that the lunatics have taken over the asylum. Peter Stone, Jez, your chat with Sir John Redwood, I got a light bulb moment. Most MPs in his time showed passion like the late Norman Tebbit and JR. Nowadays, most of them are wet. Reform MPs have oodles of passion. That's it, isn't it? Interesting. Pete says, I'm glad this Afghan thing has broken today because PMQ should be quite interesting tomorrow. I'm worried. I'm worried that you find PMQs interesting. 10 to 6 on Talk Drive.
This is someone whose numbers have never added up for more than 6 months at a time. In future, it will be spending reductions, and there's plenty of waste that we all know of government spending, rather than tax rises. That will avoid another summer of uncertainty. She caused one a year ago. She's now causing another because everyone, instead of spending or getting on or hiring people, is spending another summer worrying what is coming up in the Chancellor's budget next. Where else is the axe tax back's going to fall.
Yeah.
Some breaking news this morning revealed that under the Terrorist Act, 242 people were arrested in the year to June of this year.
That's something you can indulge in as to all the people who aren't going to prison because, well, there's no prison spaces.
So this is a talk exclusive we've been looking at.
I said, you take these cuffs off me and speak to me like a human being rather than a common criminal.
You're just left wondering, does these people who lead us actually hate Britain?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Back, it's almost 7 minutes to 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. My name's Jeremy Kyle. Unfortunately, if you'd like to be part of this vain attempt at a radio programme, 0344 499 1000 is our telephone number. You can send a WhatsApp starting with what's the stuff on the front of your trousers, Ryan, but more of that after the news at 6. Can you push... Oh, Amy, button pusher, she smiles all the time. I said, have you been on holiday? She said, I went to Gran Canaria. I said, it can't have been very hot. She said, I don't like lying in the sun. I said, why'd you go to Gran Canaria? She said, because of the all-inclusive buffet. Honestly, she can't... Just ate all day. Push the button, woman, if you can reach it.
Sport Summary on Talk.
Right, big sporting moments, apparently. Sam Ellard, I haven't spoken to you for ages. I thought you'd been replaced by Neil. How are you?
I'm good, JK. I'm good, thank you. How are you doing?
Very good. Was enthralled by the cricket yesterday. Astonishing victory at Lord's. Jofra Archer back after, I don't know, about 43 years. And 2-1 up against India. Big series this is turning into. A bit of needle as well, my old son.
Yeah, it was a belter of a test match. I mean, the third test match in a row that went to the final day, went to the final session with all results possible. And yeah, India were chasing 193 to win in the fourth innings. It got to lunch yesterday with India 8 down. England did a really good job in the morning session. It was just a matter of sort of when England were going to get the last 2 wickets. And in the end, they only picked up 1 in the afternoon session. It went to the evening session. India got closer and closer and closer to pulling off what would have been the end bin. A pretty impressive run chase given the precarious position they were in. But yeah, you mentioned it there. This test match had everything. It had needle. I think that's what this match will be remembered for. There was a great over late on Saturday night when Crawley was time wasting.
It was great. My hand hurts. I need a drink. It was brilliant. I love it.
Yeah, it was housery to coin a football phrase. It was great to see. And yeah, lots of chat, lots of aggression. And I think adds to the occasion, the series. It feels a long time ago now, but yeah, this was the first time we saw Jofra Archer play Test match cricket in 4.5 years, and he went well. We had a 2 10-over Ben Stokes spells yesterday. It just had everything. England get the win by 22 runs. 2-1 up with 2 to go. We go to Manchester next week.
Right, very quickly football, because I'm going to ask some predictions. Transfer news, Liverpool rejecting a £58 million bid from Bayern Munich for Luis Diaz, and Brentford signing Jordan Henderson on a 2-year deal. Quick response to that, Sammy?
So the Luis Diaz one's really interesting. I think the Liverpool are happy with their options in wide positions. I'm not entirely sure they'll want to sell him. The interesting one is Alexander Isak, because he's kind of been a player that's kind of been linked with teams over the last kind of year, but we haven't been aware of anything kind of formal been made yet. But it's been heavily reported that Liverpool have officially made an approach to Newcastle to discuss a record bid for Alexander Isak. It's also being reported by pretty much everybody reliable that Alexander Isak is not for sale this window, but then was also being reported to throw something else into the race.
I'll give you this officially. He won't be leaving Newcastle this day. I'd stick my neck on the line.
Yeah, and again, that's what is pretty much kind of everything. But Liverpool then also now being linked with Ekatika, who Newcastle have wanted to sign this summer. So yeah, it feels like this is I agree with you. I don't think Newcastle sell this summer. I think he's got.
What do you make of Jordan Henderson quickly to Brentford on a 2-year deal? Left Ajax, whatever you want to call him.
I think it seems like a decent move for all parties. I think he gets to play in the Premier League. He gets to keep his sort of England ambitions alive.
Thought he'd go to Sunderland, kidder. I thought he'd go home to Sunderland. That's what I thought.
Yeah, Sunderland have had quite an adventurous window. Signed quite a few decent players. But yeah, Brentford get an experienced player, could probably do a decent job. Feels like it's one that maybe makes sense for all parties.
OK, 3 minutes to go. Two massive sporting events this week. Let's start with the Lions. First test against Australia on Saturday, no doubt on talkSPORT. The Lions are talking about a 3-0 whitewash. How do you see the game going against Australia this weekend? The Lions.
Yeah, the Lions, Saturday morning. It feels like it's been a long build-up to this. We've had quite a few warm-up matches. And, almost, the first game of this whole tour, the Lions lost, didn't they? It feels a long time ago now, but beaten by Argentina. And to be fair, since then, it has felt like, bit cliche, but it feels like maybe they are peaking at the right time. We've had some pretty impressive victories. The level of opposition against Australia, not the strongest. I mean, they lost to Argentina in their first warm-up game. And Argentina are ranked higher in the rankings than Australia. So I think the Lions have got a really good chance of going to Australia and doing something pretty special. But Saturday morning.
Who's going to win? Quickly, who's going to win? The Lions or Australia?
Lions win.
OK. Now, the most important thing in the world this week is the Open Championship returns to Royal Portrush, where in 2019, Shane Lowry, the Island of Islands, won the Open by 6 shots. Never been done by an Irishman like that before. It was an amazing tournament. It returns to Royal Portrush. Can Rory McIlroy win on home soil? He missed the cut last time. The expectation was so great. Tomorrow on Drive, I've got a very special guest that not even Ryan knows about. A man at 52 who decided to try and qualify for the British Open for the 38th time and wins final qualifying. Lee Westwood's going to be on Drive tomorrow after 6. Who's going to win the British Open this week? I'm going to tell you categorically 3 people you should back.
Go on, who are they?
No, you say first. Go on.
Well, I've been doing lots of research today where I'm reading all sorts of websites to try and, find maybe a little outsider or someone like that. The 2 names that have come up, Ludwig Berg is someone that lots of people are going for. And I think for the story, and I think because it's his hometown, I have to go with Rory because of, he found form last weekend. So maybe Rory in a Berg.
I'm going to go for somebody who has been the bridesmaid on many occasions. I think Justin Rose is peaking at exactly the right time. I agree with you about Ludwig Aberg. McIlroy would be great. Lowry would be great. Justin Thomas is a sneak. Justin Thomas and Justin Rose each way, both the Justins, but would be great for Rosie. He missed out on the Masters, of course, to Rory. Has been a stalwart, but it's going to be a fantastic... That is some golf course. 300,000 they expect. The weather's going to be dicey, as it always is, the links courses, but we'll bring you all of that, obviously, on talkSPORT. And you can remember what Sam Ellard said. Ludwig Aberg and Rory McIlroy, yeah?
Well, they're not the outrageous predictions, are they? One of them second favourite, one of them sixth favourite, but, hey.
You sound miserable today. You all right, or is it because you're still single? What's the matter with you?
Never. Every day is a great day, isn't it? No?
He is so sarcastic. The legend that is Sam Ellard, back tomorrow with Sport. Right, it's almost 6 o'clock. We're live across the UK. If you want to be on, it's very simple. 0344 499 1000. The news at 6 is next.
the UK. On DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Welcome back to the final hour of Drive Ahead of Kev O'Sullivan at 7. Ladies and gentlemen, during the ad break, I found out something that's likely to send me careering off this chair into utter madness. You'll have heard the news today that a huge data blunder has led to thousands of Afghans being secretly relocated to the UK. It was an email blunder by a Royal Marine who sent a secret email with the details of Afghan refugees fleeing the Taliban to the wrong people. It also included information about MI5 and the SAS and a Royal Marine Major General. The government 3 years ago, this is the Tory government, decided that this was, you know, really very concerning and actually these people's lives could be in danger. What they didn't want was the British public to know, so they took out a super injunction, which is a highest high court legal thing that means the press cannot report it. So no transparency, no free speech. We find out today, because a judge lifted the blanket ban, that 18,714 Afghans, many on the list, many arrived via unmarked planes which landed at Stansted Airport and have been have disappeared into society, right? Wait for this. They reckon this could cost, how much does they reckon it costs? £7 billion, right? So the Tories knew about this, Labour knew about this. They were very concerned about the impact these people who had helped the Brits in Afghan, they could be murdered. What I find really interesting is two things during this show. One, they can bring their families, so wives and kids, so it could be 50,000. You ready for this? $7 billion it's cost, and I've just found this out for you, ladies and gentlemen. Those relocated to the UK after a data breach have decided, with the help of left-wing human rights laws, I think I'm going to cry, to sue our government in a compensation case that could cost the taxpayer £1 billion. So let me get this absolutely right. Some idiot in the MOD, right, sends an email of 18,000 names to the wrong people. That means we've got to have them to our country for fear they could be threatened by the Taliban. I'd like to add the caveat, we don't actually know who they are, whether they're criminals. Farage stood up earlier and said they could be criminals, they could be sex offenders. We let another 20,000 people into our country we don't know who are. But not only has that cost us £7 billion, when we're bleeding skint, they're now going to sue our government for £1 billion for the incompetence of the mistake. So you want money and a home. But don't worry if you've paid your taxes all your life and you can't get to see a doctor. The world's gone nuts. A very good afternoon to Conservative commentator, Lord of the Manor, generally a good egg, should have been the last Pope, Pope Benedict Spence the 15th. Good afternoon, sir.
How are you doing, Jeremy?
You what?
How are you?
I'm not good at all. People are starting to worry about me. People are beginning to think that I honestly, I promise you, when the trains work, I sit there every night and this is what I say to myself. Kyle, come on, it can't be this bad. You're going to go in one day and it's going to be absolutely fine. But B, I don't know where to start. I mean, I can accept human error. I can sort of, to a degree, accept that they thought that there was a danger to these people's lives. But to bring 18,000 plus their family in unmarked planes that we didn't know about, whilst the press are not being, told they can't write this story, and to then discover in the ad break that those who have been secretly relocated to the tune of £7 billion are now suing our skint government for another £1 billion, and all of this whilst we're absolutely financially on our knees. Where does it end? Where does it end, pal?
Honestly, I think this story today it's slightly broken me. I think that this might be the thing that pushes me over the edge, because it is... 2 weeks ago, I was on your program and we were discussing the Horizon scandal, the post office scandal. I think it was 2 weeks. And I said on your program, the modus operandi of the British government is not to play things straight. It is not to be honest with people. It is to cover up mistakes when it makes mistakes and try to hide them and not fix them. And I said 2 weeks ago, you bet your life there will be other things that will come out. I didn't think it would be 2 weeks later, and I didn't think it would be £7 billion worth of a massive operation that was hidden from the press, from Parliament, from local authorities, and has been done, as you say, because of the sheer idiocy of what appears to be a Royal Marine. Quite why anybody thought you should put a Royal Marine in charge of anything with a computer in the first place, I don't know. But this is very typical MOD thing to just go, oh, a couple of,
And why hasn't he been prosecuted? And why hasn't he been prosecuted and jailed? You would be for secrets given away. This is ludicrous, isn't it?
Oh, no, nobody will suffer anything for this. Nobody will suffer any sort of ramifications, I don't think. And as you say, it's 18,000 that we know of, many of which are already here, but it could be up to 150,000 people could be brought to this country, and they are going to be dropped into your communities. You're not going to get a say about any of this. And as you say, it's 7 billion that we can find. We can find 7 billion for this. We can find 10 billion for the government of Mauritius to wipe out its debt. We can find billions for people to live on universal credit. We can find billions for people to have free cars just because they are bone idle in this country. We can find billions for all sorts of things. But what is it that the hard-working taxpayers who play by the rules in this country get? They get slapped in the face again and again and again. And let's be very clear on the subject of these of this particular issue. When they talk about the reprisals against the hundreds of thousands of Afghans, do you know how many the UN has identified as being extrajudicially killed by the Taliban?
No.
Can you guess? 300. 300 people. I'll be honest with you, I apologise for this language, it is a wet dream fantasy of liberals in this country that the second that the Taliban take over, it's going to go back to the dark ages and they're going to go around clubbing people to death over their heads. It hasn't happened because they need people in place, much like in Germany in 1945 or Japan in 45. You can't just rip up hundreds of thousands of people and start murdering them because the state doesn't work. The Taliban understood this as well as anybody else. This is something that people wanted to happen. They wanted it to go back to the Stone Age for some justification of themselves to be able to say, it was right for us to set fire to tens of billions in Afghanistan in an attempt to nation build. What is all of this? It is just an embarrassment. And as
let's talk about. I complied, nearly applauded you then. I think you're absolutely right. But let's talk about the decision that was taken. They reckon, Ryan, didn't they, 3 years ago by the Tories? The reason that they decided to take out a super injunction so that the press could not, in fact, tell the British public that these people were going to secretly arrive in Britain, unchecked, we don't know who they are, and migrate into our society, probably sign on benefits, get a new car, have some Pilates lesson, a couple of tennis rackets, Bob's your uncle. The truth of the matter is, I wanted to ask you, why did that and it wasn't the Labour Party, although they've kept it secret. Why was that decision taken? Was it simply because they were advised that these people could be targeted by the Taliban? That was the reason they took out the super injunction, right? Is that right?
That is presumably the reason that they said you can't possibly report any of this because the Taliban will go around killing people. But let's be clear, the Taliban are not morons. I know that this is something that our very clever people in Whitehall seem to believe that everyone else in the rest of the world is a gibbering half-wit except them. The Taliban would be able to go to the local police station, look at the list of people who worked for the British Army and gone, okay, this person worked as a police officer. It is not beyond the possibility of their reading comprehension to do this. And yet, it hasn't happened. There have been reprisals, of course, against some people. As I said, about 300 to 350 people have disappeared or been shot after the Taliban declared a general amnesty. Need to remember that. They declared an amnesty. So it's not that, that the government was completely benevolent. But this idea that it was going to be hundreds of thousands of people, I mean, it was a fantasy from the very start. But again, this will have been a legal, interpretation. This will have been something that the MOD needed to do to cover its own backs. And this will also, I'm afraid, have been part of that general mindset, which is that we, the British, are uniquely evil through history, have caused all sorts of suffering, and now have some sort of responsibility.
Got some breaking news for you, B. I've got some breaking news. Can we try somebody from Reform for me? Can you try and get me somebody? Reform they've just announced they're blaming Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman as they were immigration ministers at the time. They're blaming Jenrick and Braverman, Reform, just released, as they were the immigration ministers at the time. So I'm not having a go at anybody specifically because this was taken by the Tories and continued by the Labour Party. But the fact of the matter is, however we dress this up, whether we can see holes in the argument that all of these people were going to be targeted, loads of emails, thousands of them saying, what about the expats? That's one argument. But the other argument is surely the one most important thing about the United Kingdom, about any government, is to protect protect its own people. You've got another 20,000, potentially a lot more than that, as you said, with family and friends coming to this country, and we don't know who the hell they are. Ministers have warned there could be riots after the lifting of this super injunction, so they must have known the reaction there was going to be. So what, this was a ticking time bomb? When the super injunction went, they knew they were going to get this flack, right? And this is on the day it was announced that 1 million migrants are claiming benefits in the United Kingdom. And people say to me, and I'm trying to be calm, people say to me, we need a deterrent. Oh, we need, Rwanda didn't work, we need a deterrent. We need to... I tell you what the deterrent is, right? It's really, really simple. For the calmest thing I've ever said on this station, stop being such a soft bag of... Stop giving everything to people who have not paid for it to the detriment of your own people. Isn't that the truth, Benedict? Isn't it?
It is the truth. And I have to say that what will end up happening in this country, and it is already starting to happen, is that young people in my sort of age bracket will just leave. We've been told for years, we've had this forced down our throats, that international immigration, that migration, that globalization is a wonderful thing. Except, of course, when it applies to people like us. We have to stay because we have to earn the money to pay the taxes so that everybody else can come here and sponge off us. But there are already so many people who have already left, who I know, and many more who are planning to leave. And they will go to the Gulf, they'll go to Dubai, they will go to the United States, they will go to Australia, they will go... It has already started. And all of the people who sort of sit around going, oh, well, good riddance to the millionaires. We don't want them. Oh, good riddance to the people who don't want to...
Who do you think pays 40% tax?
Exactly.
Where does that money go in the exchequer then, you idiots?
When the economic crash happens, and it is going to happen in this country, and it is going to be painful, those same people will turn around and go, oh, no, what a disaster. But
I'll tell you exactly what will happen. The International Monetary Fund, when there's a global crash, will say, we'll lend you the money and this is what's going to happen, and we'll end up with inflation at 30+%, and all the unions won't be able to get their pay rises from their Labour leaders, and they will go on strike. I know I'm old, I know I'm boring, but it happened in 1979. And the truth of the matter is that this government, if you promise to give everybody money and you talk about a black hole, but you give your union mates rises, you end up bankrupting the country. But for me, and I just wanted to get your angle on this before we go on another story. With all of this, universal benefits, huge data blunders, now the taxpayer could face another £1 billion compensation because the leak victims from Afghan are going to use left-wing lawyers paid by you and me to get more money out of us, whatever. I just feel really strongly that and trying to put this in the right way is difficult, mate, because people say, what are you advocating? I'm advocating nothing. I think the British people have woken up to the fact that their voice is important. I think they've woken up to the fact that they have every right to say, I've lived my life correctly. I said this earlier. I've never broken the law. I paid my taxes, brought my kids up, I've paid my bills. And genuinely, do you know what, Mr. Starmer? I feel like I'm a fourth-class citizen in my own country. That is going to be at the heartbeat of what the British people think. I really genuinely believe that. I really do.
I find it interesting that you had to sort of just put in there, people will say, what are you advocating? And you then have to say, I'm not advocating anything. Because so much of what has happened in this country has been done on the back of, if you say anything that is slightly contentious, people leap down your throat straight away and they say, you're a bigot, you're a racist, you're this, that, and the other. Even though now, of course, we have a Labour Prime Minister who's actively coming out and going, by the way, guys, this might not have worked, and you were all right to begin with. If you keep on doing that, just as a policy, you keep on dismissing everything as fascism, or go the other way, you discuss it as communism, and you don't actually offer any viable, tangible, physical policy. You don't actually try and fix it, but you just dismiss everything as extremism. Sooner or later, people stop caring when you say, you're a racist, you're a communist, you're a this, that, and the other. And this is the thing. We will have it, that it will be put to us, that this will lead to right-wing sentiments and the rise of the far right and everything that's... It probably, there is a good chance that it will turn a lot of people that way. But you know what else it'll do? Well, right now, when you've got a Labour Party that is performing as badly as it is, it will push people the other way. It will push people towards the far left, and they are just as dangerous as the far right. That is what is going to happen when you have centrist parties that go, policy? No, that's not important. What's important is appearing to be nice. Eventually you'll get fascists and you'll get communists.
Completely agree. So we've destroyed the government, we've destroyed everybody but everything. Let's go on to the other main news story of the day, because this is also reaching a point where I don't even know how the BBC in its current form is able to exist. I don't know how many lives Tim Davies got. Tonight we reported at about 5 o'clock they've sacked John Redwood, the co-host, of course, with Greg Wallace. This is on the back of the Review. Found Wallace guilty of, I think, 40 upheld claims of all sorts of things, not going into it. Redwood was found guilty of a racist comment in 2018 that he doesn't remember making. The BBC Today has cleansed the show and got rid of him as well. You look at Davey and you go, so that Bob Villain called Death to Jews, that was allowed to be played out. Hugh Edwards is still getting his salary. You've had MasterChef. You've had all sorts of stuff going on, and still you are hanging on. Again, a bit like the British public, being completely serious with you, the British public are going, let me get this right. Not only are you ideologically set in a view that you push upon us all, and your programming's pretty outright now, but you continue to what? Mark your own homework and do your own tidying up, and it's a complete mess and you don't make any right decisions. The BBC, in my humble opinion, never been employed by them, never will, is in grave danger of fall. People will go, what? How can it survive, mate? I don't believe the British people have confidence in it anymore.
No, and I think that the BBC doesn't really have a sort of a direction that aligns with what most normal people would think it is for.
Yeah.
As much as anything else, just on the subject of John Redwood and Greg Wallace, I've never been a fan of MasterChef. It wasn't something that I found particularly interesting. I know it was very successful. Do we actually even know what it is that they're meant to have done or said? Because this in itself, if they have done or said appalling things, fine, but it seems a little bit Stalinist that there is just this, oh, he said 30 or 40 things. We're not going to say what they are, but we're getting rid of them.
I think it would be fair. I think it would be fair to say that, and without getting into trouble, I think that the Wallace 40 things, I think there's quite a lot of specific stuff, right? But, and I said it earlier,
John Redwood said one thing.
As I said it earlier, and I'm glad you brought it up. And I qualify it because I've been there myself. I'm not condoning if Redwood said that, but I guarantee you, Benedict Spence, that I could go into this building on any floor, and I could go into any TV studio, I could go into any production building, I could go anywhere, and if I was any good, I could find something on absolutely everybody that if you put in a newspaper or you put online would make that person's career finish in the world we live in. Does it make it right? Does it make it right? But what we're talking about here is something 10 years ago that one person said. I'm not saying that is not happening and it was outrageous and all that sort of stuff. But where do we get? I said earlier, I know two really successful, famous television presenters, both men who will never go on television again because they cannot be doing with looking over their shoulder and worrying that if they just make a flippant joke or something, they're going to be cancelled and ostracised forever.
Yeah, and it's, again, actually, sooner or later, a bit like we were saying with the political stuff, if you just keep on doing this, eventually it doesn't work. Sooner or later, we will get to a point where actually just throwing an anonymous allegation at somebody that they said something a bit mean or a bit fruity once upon a time, that won't work anymore because people will go, well, as you just said, we're going to lose half our staff at this rate. It's a real shame.
It'll go full circle. I'll probably be dead, but it will definitely go full circle because people... People, I mean, you used the phrase Stalinist. I mean, honestly, I used a phrase some time ago about presenters generally, and I'm old, right? But I look at presenters now who are so scared of losing their jobs. They don't do their jobs, right? They're on television already because, oh, what if? Well, fine, I get that. If you're 20, maybe if you're my age or Piers' age or Mike's age, or Chris Evans' age, it's like whatever. But I fear that all of that's gone and we're rinsing everything. Everything's beige. And maybe I'm wrong. I don't believe the British public want that, you see. I think the British public are perfectly able to have a sense of humour and hear both sides of an argument and make a decision. But they're now being told by the BBC and being told by our government what they should think, what they should watch, what they should see. Not right.
Yeah, I mean, I was literally about to say, I think it's really interesting that this whole sort of Me Too woke sort of stuff culminates at the exact moment that things like BBC Comedy and other things like that just fell off a cliff. Once upon a time, you'd get people like Frankie Boyle going on the BBC and telling outrageous jokes that were, that were cruel. There was no way about it, but very funny. Now, you wouldn't catch him doing that for love nor money, unless, of course, it was about a Tory, because that's allowed. That's the sort of thing where you've got this sort of double standard where there are some people that you can be absolutely brutal about, and they occupy a very narrow subsection, either Conservative MPs or people who voted for Brexit. And everybody else, if you say anything about them at all, you're going to the gulag, me old son, and that's it for you.
It's interesting talking to you because as I said at the beginning of the call, I do sometimes think it's me, but it just frightens me, man, because if I was, I think just to finish, if I was sat in front of people all the time who were going, no, Jez, no, but it's everywhere. Everywhere I go, people say to me, what's going on? Or they go, that station does it because it speaks the truth. And I think it's really relevant. Benedict Spence, you are a legend. And as somebody said here, you love this. I'm loving Benedict this evening. First passion. We could do with him being a politician. Matthew in Cheltenham.
Oh, that's very kind of you, Matthew in Cheltenham. You don't want me to be a politician at all. That would be a nightmare. But thank you for the thought.
Why would it be a nightmare?
Because I might actually say what I do. I might actually follow through with my promises.
Like me, you wouldn't last very long. Benedict Spence, thank you very much indeed. 6:22, we're live across the United Kingdom. This is Talk Drive. If you want to be on, so much to talk about today. 0344 499 1000 is the telephone number. Text to 87222. We're back. Who have we got now? Who's very exciting? Ben Habib, chairman of Great British PAC, former MEP, even Brexiteer, is next on Talk Drive.
I think that you're best combating things like anti-Semitism when you have free speech. People can criticise governments, they can criticise the actions of a particular state, and obviously there's a lot going on in the Middle East at the moment that people will be concerned about. But that is one thing. What you can't then do is go and pick on Brian at the water cooler at lunchtime in your workplace and have a go at him for something that might have nothing to do with him whatsoever because he's a Jew.
This is someone whose numbers have never added up for more than 6 months at a time. In future, it will be spending reductions, and there's plenty of waste that we all know of government spending, rather than tax rises. That will avoid another summer of uncertainty. She caused one a year ago. She's now causing another because everyone, instead of spending or getting on or hiring people, is spending another summer worrying what is coming up in the Chancellor's budget next. Where else is the axe tax?
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
6:26, we're live across the UK. Mike Graham is back tomorrow morning. The legend that is Mike Graham, back with Morning Glory, up and at it nice and early. Have you got me that figure yet, Ryan? Stretching, what's going on? Oh, of course it hasn't. What's going on? Are we going to a call or are we going to our guests? What are we doing? We're going to Glasgow. Jane, you're on Talk. What have I done that for? Jane, you're on Talk Drive. How you doing?
Hi, Jeremy. It's lovely to meet you.
You what?
I said it's lovely to meet you.
I haven't met you, but I'm talking to you, but it's lovely to meet you too. My daughter's in Scotland as well, but the posher part, Edinburgh. I'm only joking.
Oh, yes.
I know. What we got?
I'm in Govan.
There you are. What you got?
Well, I think it's terrible. The way they are bringing all these people in, and the pensioners are getting nothing.
Completely.
I think the government is wrong. And I think years ago they should have listened to Eno Powell.
Well, that's contentious. I'll say this to you, though. One thing I will say, and I think what I really take from it all is there's a lot of people of a certain age who have worked really hard all their lives and feel they're being cheated by the system now, and that others are getting more. Would that be a fair comment?
Yes, that's a very fair comment.
What do you say to the people? This is really interesting, because I always think it's important for you to do this.
They come into our country, they get everything.
What would you say to the people who say, come on, this is unfair, these poor people, they've come from horrible places and they've got nothing in their lives? What would you say to those people?
I think it's a lie.
Yeah, and do you have any faith in politicians at the moment?
No.
Brilliant. Well, that's just a nice happy call, isn't it? Jane in Glasgow, we love having you on. Thank you very much indeed. She sums up what a lot of people think. Hello to Rob in Broadway, Simon as well. How many countries are there in the world, Jez, where you have to pay a tax to watch the TV? Not many. Richard says, Ricky in Yorks, good afternoon to you. Thank you for your message as well. 87222. Start your message with the word talk. 0344 499 1000. Delighted to be joined by former MEP and Brexiteer, but now the leader of Advance UK, his new political party, Ben Habib. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Jeremy. Good to see you again.
I'm really confused, so please don't have a go at me on air. I got an invite to a thing launching a new party that I thought was you, and it isn't. Not that I can go. This is a different one. Tell me about Advance quickly. Talk to me.
Well, Advance UK is a party that stands for nation state, freedom of speech, democracy and equality under the law. Four things you might think are self-evidently the guiding principles of any British political party or government. But actually, when you look at the parties on the political landscape, none of them actually stand collectively for those four crucial things which create the ability for a settled constitution, culture, people, and prosperous economy for the United Kingdom. And so we are bringing forward a reacquaintance with the principal guidelines required actually to deliver not just our country from the peril in which it now finds itself, but into a settled constitutional, cultural, and economically favourable position. That's what Advance UK will do. It will advance the United Kingdom in all its parts and for all its people, and it will do it democratically with the people, for the people.
And is the plan to run locally or nationally and to gather together? How do you go about setting up something like this?
So we have a constitution. It's quite different to any other political party. It includes something called the college, which will comprise between 50 and 100 people who are not paid a shilling by the party and cannot hold public office if they wish to be in the college. They do it because they care about the country and they sign up to the political philosophy that I just outlined. And they then advocate for our principles. They help us find the candidates we need to fight elections. And they also help us draft the policies which will then give effect to our political philosophy. No political party has that kind of intellectual ballast, that approach to candidate identification and policy making. And our focus really is on 2029, because there isn't time to, fight local elections, get a new party on the map and fight local elections between now and then. But the crucial thing we want to do, Jeremy, the really crucial thing is to establish the political philosophy, which, as you probably think, is so self-evidently obvious that every party, every government, every politician in this country should stand for nation state, freedom of speech, democracy, and equality under the law, but they don't. And so we have to drive these fundamental truths back home.
Interesting. Right, me old son. Great to have you on. This is really interesting. Oh, hold on. Jezza, please leave the Afghans alone. They helped keep our troops safe and alive. They are welcome here. Thank you, Jennifer. Jennifer, you're entitled to your opinion, but it is a story that has absolutely taken us all by storm today, Ben Habib. A huge data blunder. has led to 18,714 Afghans being secretly brought into the country via unmarked planes into Stansted. We add the caveat that they can also bring their family and their children. It could be upwards of 100,000. A Royal Marine, a civil servant, patently sent an email to the wrong people, and it resulted in the then Tory government thinking, Christ, these people's lives are in danger. Now, whether you agree with that or not, that resulted in all of these people being brought to this country. But the government today, the Tory government, and tonight Reform are blaming Robert Jenrick and Suella Braverman, who were in charge of immigration at that time. The government took out a super injunction, which meant that the British public, via the British press, couldn't find out. We find out today, and naturally, there are people like Jennifer, I take her point, many more are saying, hold on a minute, the first duty of a government is to protect its people. That's another 20,000 people. Farage has been up and has said these people could be sexual offenders, they could be criminals. We are bringing people into our country, not only who could be dangerous, but who are swelling numbers, stretching still further our public services to the detriment of people from this country who have paid into them forever. Thoughts, please, Ben?
I absolutely, completely agree with your analysis of the damage that bringing 23,900 people plus their families into the United Kingdom would do. And I think many of the people on the list were down as potentially criminal and sexual offenders, I think some of them as well. These are not people who helped British troops or helped our campaign in Afghanistan. These are people who simply ended up on a list that was made public. And in the pursuit of their protection, they'd applied for asylum, and that list was made public. And it was then concluded that their lives would be in danger by the Taliban, and a decision was made under cloak and dagger, because the government obviously understood that it would be highly contentious, that they would be brought back to the United Kingdom wholesale. And one thing you didn't mention, of course, was the cost of £7 billion that is estimated to be the cost of bringing these people here and then looking after them once they're here.
Well, it gets worse. It gets worse because I found out 20 minutes ago that these Afghans secretly relocated to the UK after that data breach have got together with left-wing lawyers, and they're suing the government in a compensation case that could reach a further £1 billion. And all of this, whilst and I'm sorry to get on my high horse, while we're taking away winter fuel from pensioners, where there are men and women who have fought for this country being prosecuted, ex-service men and women, for what happened in Northern Ireland and being made homeless, whilst waspy women were lied to their faces, whilst farmers who provide the food chain in this country are being financially ruined by this government, whilst energy's going. Miliband today is walking around going, anybody that doesn't agree with net zero should be imprisoned. I just don't know where politicians' priorities are anymore, mate.
Absolutely, and that's why, as I mentioned, we have 4 priorities in Advance UK. The third priority is democracy, and our democracy has been hijacked by the supranational order. Things like the European Union, the European Convention of Human Rights. And at the heart of this problem, Jeremy, is a failure to connect with our democratic imperatives. What our political classes come to conclude, fundamentally mistakenly conclude, is that it has a greater duty of care to people in Afghanistan than it has to people in this country. And that comes out of the ridiculous notion that are embedded in the European Convention of Human Rights, the UNHCR and all sorts of other things that has infected the body politic in the United Kingdom. And we've got to start putting our own people first. Civil society in this country must be protected, and our economy must be protected for the benefit of the British people, not for people who are coming from Afghanistan because there was a data breach. And if their lives are in danger, that's because the Taliban are a bunch of savages. And that is not the British government's fault, and it shouldn't be the British people who have to pick up the burden for that. I think
the thing is, why there's real anger, this is me in basic layman's terms, is there will be arguments over whether we should or whether we shouldn't. But the real hassle, I think, the real injustice for British people is that they feel that they're not even on a level playing field now. They feel that criminals get preferential treatment over victims. They feel like
100%.
Migrants get preferential economic and social benefits over them. They feel that
absolutely
the left. I don't know. I feel like the imbalance is resulting in the British public, I said it earlier, saying, hold on a second. Why would I said it earlier? Why would I live my life correctly, pay my taxes, not break the law, not ask for a handout, teach my kids the difference between right and wrong, open, all that stuff, right? Why would I do that when actually I'm 28th in the queue behind a bunch of migrants and a bunch of criminals and a bunch of whatevers? Yeah. And I think that's a real issue, and it is for politicians
100%.
of whatever party, and I mean this, your party, Reform, Labour, whatever. I'm not including the Greens; they're nightmares. But I'm being completely honest when I say this. I think the politicians need to understand that the British people have woken up to the fact that their voice and their vote is really important, because I think they feel like they're being pushed around. Let me ask you, an Advanced UK, your new party, something else, the BBC. How the bloody hell has Tim Davies still got a job? How is it that this man has overseen a paedophile who's still walking the streets and getting a pension? That he allows the on demand of a bloke saying, let's kill the IDF, which is essentially Jews.
Extraordinary.
Today they've sacked John Terode. I'm not going to get embroiled in what might or might not have been said, and Greg Wallace. They've cleansed that programme. Presumably they've lined up some diverse people to take over. I'm not getting into the rights or wrongs of it, but how on earth, Adrian Mills, who was very famous on That's Life, good friend of mine, he said earlier, how is this man still alive? You only get 9 lives. It's a disgrace, isn't he?
Completely. And every single issue you've mentioned there has its roots in the Human Rights Act, where we set aside what it means to be British, and then the subsequent act, the Equalities Act, which requires positive discrimination in order to ostensibly level the playing field. But what you've identified and given so many good examples of, Jeremy, is that progressive discrimination actually just breeds discrimination against British citizens and breeds a favourable treatment of foreigners. Instead of getting rid of discrimination, we've actually embedded discrimination into our system against the very people that discrimination should be avoided. You know, so for example, as you said, victims are no longer given priority in the criminal justice system. The criminals are being protected. Yep. We see that with deportations. They don't get deported because their lives are threatened. These Afghanis are coming here because their lives are threatened. We've got to progressively discriminate in their favour. And the BBC is absolutely captured by that thinking, by that ideology. So they will throw someone under a bus because of some inadvertent, stupid comment they made 4 or 5 years ago. But they will go on protecting the identity of, as they did with Hugh Edwards, of someone who's holding absolutely horrific child pornography photographs, and then allow him to keep all the salary he was paid while he was suspended, send him off with a nice pension. The whole country is turned on its head. And as you rightly also say, Jeremy, the British people have had enough. They're looking at this and going, saying, this is all topsy-turvy.
But listen to Alison in Billericay. Compensation for what? Rescuing them, housing them and giving them benefits. Oh, and a better life to the detriment of me. Beam me up, Scotty. I've had enough. I've got to let you go, Ben Habib. But Anna in Surrey says, I've just fallen in love with Ben Habib. It's all going on this show.
Oh, thank you.
Oh, he sounds very... Bless him. Ben with his new party, Advanced UK. More about that on Talk coming up. 0344 499 1000. Text to 87222. It's on the screen. Send your message. We'll get you... Oh, this is one. It's interesting. I really like Ben Habib because he speaks a lot of sense in this crazy world. However, I'm not keen on him starting his new political party, Advanced UK. It would seem like he just wanted to front his own party, which he couldn't do with Reform. Am I wrong? We'll get him back on at some point to discuss it. Next, the ladies have demanded it. The ladies have demanded it. When you're on, Jezza, you need John Lucas, the night news editor from The Sun, known as Sarge. He's got a bit of a female following. We need him to come in and look hunky and tell us what's in the paper tomorrow. Apparently, I'm not hunky enough. Talk Drive.
UK. On DAB+. On your smart speaker. On your smart TV. And on your side. This is Talk.
Back, my friends. 18 minutes to 7. So yeah, every evening we talk about what's in the Sun newspaper tomorrow. Get my big Sun logo up because, ladies and gentlemen, what can I say? I mean, we are by popular demand. He's back. The night. What was that programme? The hunky late night sort of. The night manager, I don't know what it was. John Lucas, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Ladies, he's called Sarge. Sarge is back. You're loving this, aren't you?
Yeah, well, that was Tom Hiddleston actually in that, and he had a lot
No,
of
but
hair.
what was the guy that sat in a room? the lawyer. I don't know. Anyway, and he was just a hunk. Anyway, the women. No, shut up, Ryan. I don't mean that disrespectfully, obviously. Don't get traumatised and go on sick for 8 months out of anxiety or something. It's lovely to have you back. We always love doing this bit, but the women are crying out for you. Is the wife happy about this? I just let it out. He's married.
I'm not going to say anything about that situation.
Tomorrow's paper, I mean, we've talked about it all day. I mean, this £7 billion cover-up. For people who don't know this story are just coming in, thousands of Afghans have been secretly relocated to the United Kingdom in unmarked planes into Stansted. This was not the Labour government. They've too covered it up, but this was during the Conservative government. Tonight, Reform have come out. Nigel said some of these could be criminals. We don't know who we're letting into this country. 18,714 in unmarked planes because these people were in Afghanistan. Did they all help? I don't know. But a blunder meant that an email was sent. These people's lives are in danger. So the British government at the time, the Tories, thought, let's get them back here. What I'd like to ask is why the hell they took out a super injunction, which meant the Sun and other newspapers couldn't print this information until today.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a journalist, you're often asked, is there a super injunction against this or that? And we say, I mean, you know, they don't really exist. They don't really happen. But this did happen. And it's all because one guy accidentally sent
a civil servant.
A civil servant, essentially, sent this email. And this is all in the wake of the US disastrous pullout from Afghanistan. It probably should never have happened. But it did happen, and lots of Afghans, and many of them very deserving, heroically put their lives on the line, helping the West get rid of the Taliban, get rid of Al-Qaeda, working as translators and all the rest of it. Also, I mean, a lot of them were cleaners on bases and other things. Lots of them very deserving to come here, but this blunder meant that the names of everybody who'd applied, whether they were deserving or not, got leaked. They were obviously all at risk of death from the Taliban.
Were they?
Well, potentially. I mean, and we know that MI6 agents, SAS agents, other military people were at risk. People were attacked. People who are on this list were attacked and killed. Now, we don't know if it's a direct result.
Right.
But the point is, it's costing a huge amount of money. Some of the figures is we're saying £100 million in compensation.
No, I don't mean to be rude.
300 million to relocate them.
Oh, right.
It's going to go on and on throughout the lifetime.
Well, today we found out the taxpayer could face a further £1 billion compensation bill because the Afghans, secretly relocated after a data breach, have got together and are suing the government at a compensation cost. The thing is, I accept you, and it's not, I accept what you're saying. It was human error and it was appalling. I can question why the government wasn't more transparent with the British people, but you have to look at it in the context of where we're at. And where we're at is millions of people who read The Sun and listen to this and are involved with, they're not far right, but they're going, hold on a second, my country's on its arse. I feel like you can come to this country and get more than we get who pay their stamp. They're going to look at this and they're going to listen to Farage saying, how many of them are criminals? How many have got sexual offences against them? They're going to go, surely the first rule of government is to protect its people. You've let another 20,000 people in here and you don't know who the hell they are.
Exactly.
I think that's the it.
Because of this super injunction, so there's been no scrutiny from the media, nor from Parliament.
No, absolutely.
As you say, no one's been able to look and say, well, who are all these people? They've been housed quite sneakily. You know, we're seeing the boat migrants going to hotels in the public realm, whereas these guys have been, and we think most of them are here, so 23,000 already here, have actually been housed on MOD property. So that's kept them out of the. And
I don't doubt that some of them, I wouldn't think all of them were helpful, but I think you have to look at where we're at, and the British public are going, Right, so I can't see a doctor, I don't keep going back to it, or a dentist, and I can't get this, but people who come in get everything. So these people have got everything, and there will be people like Jennifer who disagrees with me, who says these people deserve it. But my answer to Jennifer is, if those people do, can you explain to me why people in this country are working hard and paying their taxes get nothing?
Without that blunder, it would have been about 10 to 15% of that list would have almost certainly qualified. So it's a hell of a huge difference.
300.
And the other point to make is, because of this secrecy, all these numbers have been kept off the official figures. So the official immigration figures will now become much higher because we have this information.
The other main story that we've come out with today, and it's been going on, is MasterChef is on the front page of the Sun today. Brilliant article. Tonight, an hour ago, John Redwood has been fired by MasterChef. I'm going to tell you something else in a minute, but we've had a big argument, a discussion about it, and it's not for me to condone it, but it does strike me that, you know, this was 10 years ago. I mean, do you remember everything you said 10 years ago? I'm just being honest. But on the basis of all of this, the man with 9 lives, Tim Davie, you're reporting, has been given a sizable pay rise and is now on £550,000 a year. His pay went up by 2.8%. That's despite Greg Wallace, Bob Villan, the Gaza documentary. Where do you want me to finish?
Hugh Edwards. We can go back to Hugh Edwards. Obviously, Sun broke that story, and yeah, I mean, it's a 15 grand pay rise in real terms, which is more than half the salary of an NHS nurse. Has to be noted. Yeah, so John Redwood. This is in the wake of the report into Greg Wallace. He wasn't mentioned in the report, but there was an allegation that it said was upheld. He sort of outed himself and said, yes, about me, but I don't recall this incident. I was only told about it 2 weeks ago. He doesn't apparently quite know what it was that he said. So is this a sort of
cleansing
overreaction to, you know, now they just want to sort of clear the decks of anybody?
But here's my point, and it's not for you to... I mean, listen, you're a great journalist on the Sun, but here's my problem, right? And this isn't because of my past experience. If you employ certain people and you create characters, and then when that becomes politically incorrect, everybody in production and management moves backwards, and that presenter's the only one. I'm not sticking up for Redwood, I'm not sticking up for Wallace, I'm not sticking up for myself, I'm not sticking up for whoever, right? But it gets to a point where you're going to be so frightened to say bugger all, you're not going to do your job. That's all I'm saying. And it would strike to me that the BBC, it's another example of, we're all paying this money every year for what? A leftist ideology, and you mark your own homework. Somebody from outside should be going into the BBC and saying, like the Baroness Casey report into the gangs, the rape gangs, you know, this is not acceptable. How he's alive is beyond me. We can only have one other. Do you want Mum Who Beat the Cheat or Man Whole Lot of Love?
Should we do the Mum Who Beat the Cheat?
Yeah. A mum turned detective to nail a bent DNA examiner, I've never met any of them, who faked a paternity test for a... This is more your stuff. This is like the Jeremy Kyle show.
Well, I thought this would be good for you.
Right, what is
your
this?
bread and butter. So this is a mum. She got pregnant.
Yeah.
She had the baby within 2 days. The dad has walked out and said, that's not my kid.
Right.
So she has obviously gone for a DNA test, as she would do. She's not slept with anyone else. There's no chance that...
You see, I don't believe that. I heard that for years, and then suddenly he wasn't the father. So
but amazingly, it comes back and it says, no, he's not the dad. What this chap had done in the meantime is he'd gone and he'd looked up the testing lab, he'd found someone there who he managed to corrupt. This guy used his own saliva to fake the DNA test. Come back to her, she thought she was going mad. She was thinking, well, is it possible I've sat on a toilet seat and got pregnant? She was going through all these myths,
brilliant.
What could possibly have happened. Her family started to disown her, because what she did was she managed to persuade this chap's grandmother to provide a DNA sample. No, the chap's mum, and then that proved that she was the grandmother of the kid. She's then confronted him, she's gone to the cops, and both of these guys were hauled up to Crown Court, and they've been banged up for a couple of years for this. Loads of money to pay back now, because they'd calculated he was going to have to pay about 94 grand in child maintenance.
I haven't done this for a long time. The DNA test results show that He's not. Honest to God, man, that's a brilliant story.
Yeah,
Sarge, we love you. Tomorrow's newspaper, The Sun, will be as brilliant as ever. The £7 billion cover-up, 20,000 plus Afghans secretly brought into this country. To road to ruin. John Turreau tonight sacked by the BBC. Big questions about Tim Davie. Good God, how many lives do you need? And the mum who beat the cheat with the DNA test. All in the Current Bun tomorrow. The best newspaper. Thanks, John. We'll see you tomorrow. Coming back in 3.
I think that you're best combating things like anti-Semitism when you have free speech. People can criticise governments, they can criticise the actions of a particular state, and obviously there's a lot going on in the Middle East at the moment that people will be concerned about. But that is one thing. What you can't then do is go and pick on Brian at the water cooler at lunchtime in your workplace and have a go at him for something that he might have nothing to do with him whatsoever because he's a Jew.
Across the UK, on DAB+, on your smart speaker, on your smart TV, and on your side. This is Talk.
Kevin's here at 7. The incredible Petri Hoskins is here from 10. Can I say thank you to the A-team today? Good to be back. Thank you to Ryan. What was on his shorts was toothpaste. Yeah, of course it was. Jodie, what was on her? No. Hello to her and Cameron. Amy came back from All Inclusive, didn't go in the sun, just ate 4 times a day. And some bloke called Luke from downstairs who's got more hair, who's turned out to be technical. He used to be a floor manager. He said, "Don't you remember me?" Talk to me like that. "Why are you calling me Alan?" That's what they do to me now. They don't say hello. They go, "Why are you?" Because you look alike. I mean, yeah, all right. Rob Blackmore, it was called Midnight Caller. You're right. Thank you, Kieran. Stan Hall. Now we know why the government needs to build 1.5 million houses. Need I say more? Says Stan the man. Who said that you're a man? Your wife, your missus, your partner? It's a bit gobby. 4 minutes to 7. Let's take a quick call. Let's go to Wimbledon. Oh, a week late. George, you're on Talk Drive. Hello.
Hello, Jeremy. Really nice to talk to you. Great show as always. I just wanted to give you, if I can, just a perspective on this Afghan thing from the immigrants' point of view. So I'm British born and bred.
Yeah.
My husband's Lebanese. Took us forever and a day to get into the country. I used to live in the Middle East. I just got back from Lebanon last night. I've got a lot of Lebanese friends who are immigrants here. Most of them gay, because I'm gay and we all hang out together. And they are livid with what's happened. I was on the phone to my friend earlier, Mohammed. He's Lebanese. He's lived here a very long time, doing very well, pays his taxes. He said, "I've moved from a third world country to come to Britain because it's the country I chose. to be free, to do well, and I am disgusted, and this is his words, absolutely disgusted that we've had the Tories lie to us on this Afghan thing. The Labour are even worse. And I've got people, Jeremy, my husband's a Liberal, I'm a Liberal. I'm going to end up voting for reform because this lot, they're letting everyone down, even hard-working immigrants.
I think actually, and I'm really pleased to finish the show with your call, because I always talk about the wonderful lady who does my makeup, has done it for years, Polish, came over, set up a business, pays her taxes. I talk about the guy came over with his father from Bangladesh 40 years ago. His father sat him down and said, listen, we are grateful, we are respectful, we're going to this country, it's going to give us opportunity. I think these people that I speak to, right, who have been here, built a business, pay taxes, are more livid than I am about this because they did it correctly. I don't have anything against doing our bit, but A, and one, we're skin, and B, and two, and I'll go back to it till I'm blue in the face, George, and probably like you, I probably wasn't this focused on this. But here's the thing, if you are helping other people, brilliant if you can afford it, but we're skint, and everything we do is to the detriment of British people. And if you paid your stamp and lived your life and you're being screwed and you're at the back of the queue, it's going to hack you off, man, isn't it? Absolutely. George and Wimbledon, thank you very much indeed. Kev O'Sullivan is on the way from 7. Now, Kev said to me last week, I do like to do a handover, Jez, because I think it's very important that I have a chance to tell you about my show. So, at this moment, he's going to come into the studio, he's going to put his plug into the... Oh, good, fantastic, straight in front of the screen, but we've changed the camera. Are you going to put your thing in, the hole? Oh, it didn't sound right, did it?
Yeah.
How are you, dear? Oh, no.
Yeah, I'm here. Hello, mate.
Are you all right?
Yes, very well.
Didn't get in yesterday, trains were screwed.
Yeah, I know.
Do you know why?
Yeah.
The main signal box at Woking, in the middle of a fucking heat wave, had a small rain shower and was flooded. Great Britain.
Well, I spent about an hour down the Northern Line today for similar reasons. Somebody on the track, apparently.
Yeah, whatever.
Just driving me nuts.
What are you doing, Taliban or...?
Well, obviously lots on the Taliban. Why was it injuncted? That's what I don't understand.
And now ministers are saying there could be riots because people are hacked off because you've let another 20,000 people in that could be anybody and anything.
Well, they're saying...